This episode of Limit Break Radio is made possible by our generous Patreon donors, including Renta Zial of Cactuar, Quelchrist Falconer of Ragnarok, Hungwei Lo of Sargatanis. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/Limit Break Radio.
Live from Eorzea. Limit Break. With your hosts, Unhero.
Now behold the horror you have wrought.
Kahlo.
I said don't take your clothes off.
Juxtaposition.
I don't get it.
Ascalia.
Holy shit, totally forgot about him.
And Mika.
Oh my god.
LimitBreakRadio.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Limit Break Radio, episode number 89. Thanks so much for joining us live here at twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. Happy to have you along for the ride. LimitBreakRadio.com is where you can find a full archive of our show. YouTube.com/Limit Break Radio is where you can find an archive of our live footage and also some really shitty YouTube comments.
Oh, are there a couple?
There's a few.
Did more come after last episode?
I think so.
Probably.
I don't know.
I came after the last episode.
No, you came during last episode.
Yeah, it was weird.
We're now 1 week removed from what will be referred to as the incident.
Oh, dude.
The desketing.
It's so... going back and editing that part of the show was really awkward. Like,
jacking off to it was even more awkward.
It's really hard to masturbate to. Just saying. Anyway, thanks for joining us. We've got a lot to get through here on Limit Break Radio today. There is a huge interview. We're going to be looking at interview statements from Yoshi-P just after the North American FanFest. And I got to tell you guys, there is some of the most interesting and quite frankly hype announcements in here.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, there are. There's some great shit in here that I think anyone who has been listening to this show will know. I think that maybe someone at Square Enix might be listening to some of our criticism.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, I am not.
This is not how I foresaw this going. I thought
Why?
we were going to have to get him hyped for the interviews.
Why do you sound excited?
Because there are some statements in here that have
Daddy, stop! You're scaring me.
This has been like honestly, they're addressing some things that we have been talking about for almost 2 years now, and I'm just really excited that they're aware of some of these issues that we've been putting out there. That's hugely exciting. So we're going to talk about that all here today on Limit Break Radio. We, of course, invite your calls, just like on every episode. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. Whether you want to talk about, whatever we're talking about in the interview, whether you want to talk about predictions for Stormblood, whether you want to talk about, if you want to rise to the challenge of going from a YouTube shit commenter to calling in and trying to call me on my shit, then let's do that. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord.
Well, we were planning on hijacking the show again, but
no, we've got so much. We've actually
got
a ton to get through.
It's okay. I can
That's
still
exciting.
jack something off.
So Damn it! What?
We were gonna hijack the show, so now
we're just ignoring.
Just stop. Ew, gross. Anyway, so let's get right into it and check out what's going on with FF14 news.
This is a limit-breaking news update.
And that news is Square Enix has taken some actions against in-game RMT and other illicit activities.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to set my replace the batteries in my smoke alarm.
So, between November 10th and November 16th, I didn't get that, but okay.
You can set your clock by it. Jesus.
It's just that was just a swing and a miss. So, like, you couldn't have swung harder. You were like, I've got a great one. You were so excited to get that one out
for a while.
Yeah, wow.
Congratulations, girl.
Accounts receiving disciplinary action for RMT advertising 1,005. That still seems like very little.
That's not very much at all.
That's not very. No. The second number, though, accounts receiving disciplinary action for RMT/illicit activity. That is 28,080.
Oh, that's a bigger number.
That's a far bigger number.
Yeah. Okay.
And those the action details there. Permanent bans.
Ooh.
Accounts receiving disciplinary action for participating in RMT/illegal activity, 18.
So those are the people they caught buying, but...
And those people received a temporary ban. So if you want to learn more about this, you can head on over to the Lodestone, where they've got the information on that. That's really sort of it in terms of FF14 news, outside of these interviews that we're going to be talking about. Again, there is a ton that is here. We've got a lot to comb through. And again, some of the most interesting statements that I think I've heard out of Yoshi-P since, towards the end of the 2.0 expansion. So I really want to pay some of these very, very close attention here. So let's start off with this. There's two interviews that we want to talk about. There's the Famitsu article that is it's way smaller. It's not a very huge article.
I've got a huge article,
but stop. Do you?
Nero already knows that, though.
God.
Oh my God.
Awful. Just terrible. But there's actually a second interview that's floating around. That's the Game Watch interview that they did following the North American FanFest. Now, there's a lot of overlap between the two interviews, but we've picked out some of the best stuff between the two. There's far more that's in the Game Watch interview. It just goes into way more depth. There's 3 parts of it, and huge shout out to the translators on these. Like, that must have just been a huge undertaking. So they did a fantastic job, and we're going to go through some of the better points of these interviews. And starting off with the Game Watch interview, apparently Yoshi was very nervous about the keynote out at FanFest. 2014's was very short because Yoshi was nervous and couldn't keep on track, and apparently the internet was quote unquote grumpy about the length. We know a little bit about the internet being grumpy. So
I like that we're using grumpy to describe it now. I think that's an outstanding description.
Yeah, right. Grumpy is a very diplomatic way of putting it.
Fucking pissed? Is that what we're going at here?
Yeah, apparently he was supposed to talk for an hour, and he got off stage after 45 minutes, and...
a whole 15 minutes shorter.
Ooh, yeah.
That was 2014?
That was 2014, yeah. So he also explains that the North American community team really had pulled for North America to be the location of the expansion announcement, and that Yoshi really wanted to reveal more, but he needed to have stuff to share in Japan and Europe, and says that the challenge for him was making sure that people got properly hyped. Yoshi was very, and the entire team was very aware of the expectation of the expansion announcement, and this is something that we were kind of aware of too. In the 2014 FanFest, Heavensward came out of kind of like it sort of sideswiped a few people. We thought we would be hearing a little bit more about the game's future or the next couple of patches. The inevitability, the finality of getting an expansion was just not there. The expectation was just not there. And so it created a lot more excitement and hype surrounding the announcement. And so, they were very, very conscious of the fact that, look, people are going to be expecting an expansion announcement when they, when they come out here. So how do we continue to, take that expectation and build on that, and compound that? And I think that is really interesting that they were also intensely aware of that. So apparently Yoshi didn't have a script for the FanFest keynote this year. He says with the FanFest in 2014, this is the second FanFest, but if you count all of the other regions, it's actually the fourth FanFest, meaning that it was the fourth time having the keynotes. If I use raids as an example, and I love this analogy, the 2014 FanFest is Coil of Bahamut. The 2016 and 17 FanFest is Alexander Raid, and the players have already gone through the experience of the first, second, and final Coil, and so now they look for more in this fourth raid, and that's how I thought about FanFest. So I was conscious about sending the hype train to the next FanFest with so little info we could reveal.
So we're Gordius?
Yes,
great.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, man.
With the other two FanFests, starting with Tokyo, we'll be going into detail and expect players to look forward to new features, and then we have patch 3.5. These will gradually reveal the scale of Stormblood, just like when we released A Realm Reborn, and we want this atmosphere where players wonder where the story is going, and this is our objective. Now, I think that this was a great statement and shows how clearly Yoshi is tapped into the community and where we're speculating and wants to drive speculation in certain places. And I think that you'll kind of see that in some of his more clever responses to specifics that we saw in the Stormblood trailer a little bit later on in this interview, and right into speculation in his next question and response about talking about the lady in red, and he says, please enjoy all those imaginations. That's just what the translation was. Of course, we have a guesstimate of how players will react and speculate, but us devs would also like to enjoy the live feeling of how players debate and estimate the future. At the moment, we are still on the timeline of patch 3.4, but by checking the announcements we'll be releasing in the future, players can gradually get closer and debate every time new info is revealed. I think that this is something that you can't achieve in other games, so we're thinking about providing that sort of enjoyment.
So they have a sick pleasure out of watching us debate and have no idea what we're talking about.
Yes, yep. They really do, and I think that that's great. The fact that they play on that sort of expectation and those sorts of those sorts of guess, like speculation. I think that that's phenomenal and really shows what kind of mastery Yoshi-P really has of his audience. Whether you like the content or not that we've been receiving in Heavensward, you do have to really have an appreciation for the level of showmanship that Yoshi-P and the entire FF14 team has when presenting and even revealing new info about content. So, all the credit in the world. And he says, yes, especially the character in the red outfit. She is a new character.
Is she?
Yes, that's yes. Thank you. Is she a new character? Is she already an existing character? And who is she? That will be what the future patches will touch on. And so we cut out small portions of the future and showed the players. I hope players enjoy talking about all the possibilities. Is
there a possibility I can touch her boobs?
Probably not.
Probably
no.
not.
I'm going to guess no. Not unless they really embrace the Japanese-ness of
embrace
games.
PlayStation VR.
No.
And
God,
VR feature.
no. The last thing we need.
But I think it's also kind of furthers like the idea that the information that we have now, there is no definitive answer out yet. They haven't given one, and it's very on purpose.
Right. Yeah, precisely. So he also confirms that Scions will play a role in Stormblood. That's not a huge surprise. Now, this one, Nika, this one is aimed right at you on Videgelt. Is that how you say it?
It's supposed to be Vidergelt.
Vidergelt?
Vidergelt?
Yeah, it's
Vidergelt.
not
Okay.
spelled right.
All right, hey, I was in the ballpark.
But there's supposed to be an R in there.
I was in the ballpark.
If you say that name 3 times, you get a wish.
On Vidergelt's role in Stormblood, so he says that rather unique character who gives you his sweaty monk gear and laughs. He might show up in the job quests. He might be a little too sultry for the main story quest.
What?
I'd like players to look forward to characters who are related to Alamigo and how they turn out in Stormblood.
He's definitely he's like the Prince of Alamigo, so he better show up in the main storyline.
Sounds like he's a job quest giver.
Well, I know.
I mean, he's the monk job guy. He's always been the monk job guy, but he is most definitely the Prince of Alamigo who's run away.
The Prince of all Saiyans!
So he better be somehow tied into it. I mean, he doesn't have to have as big of a role as Ostinian did, but he should most definitely be tied into the main story.
Maybe he should just get killed off at the start, and that's why we go to Alamigo. I would like that.
No.
Or maybe he's not actually the prince and it was all a red herring.
Why did they say he's sultry? He's not that sultry of a character.
I don't know. You tell me. I don't know that much about him. You seem to be very enamored with him.
Did he say he's the prince?
I don't know. Did he? I don't remember.
He helps, in the new job quest too. He helps to rebuild the new monk order, and they're learning how to combine the two different factions of monk and combine all your chakra to learn all of the moves, and instead of having two opposing monks, he's kind of like this leader of merging all the monks together to create a new faction of monks. I don't see why he wouldn't be the one to lead the monks back into Alamigo.
Because there are a lot of other interesting characters that have ties to Alamigo that.
But if he's the prince, that sounds important.
Who says he's the prince? I don't remember.
Where are you getting this information?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
It in the storyline, in the monk storyline.
Okay, if you say so.
Red
He hint at it.
He's not my prince, okay?
And I'm willing to bet it's
Hashtag
probably
not
in the
my
Lord book,
prince.
too.
I didn't vote for him.
Apparently, it actually is in the lore book too.
All right. So, direct question from Game Watch here. You said that the teaser trailer is only a small portion of the actual trailer, but what were your intentions behind choosing that combat scene? And Yoshi says, to put it simply, there are too many spoilers, so that was the only part that we could show. Just like Heaven's Word, I drew the storyboard for the whole trailer, and Stormblood trailer turned out to express the total scale of the expansion compared to the Heaven's Word trailer. So I made it harder to make a short version of it. He also says it's about 2 minutes, but it's a little less than a third of the whole trailer, considering future PRs and the outcomes of the main scenario. We had a chunk of scenes that we could not show until we release patch 3.5. Now, I regret that. I should have had the short version in mind when I drew the storyboard. I'll watch out for that next time. We cut out a large portion of what comes after that scene as well. So, that's...
They make out.
That's a huge... If that's a third of the trailer, that's a huge trailer, man.
That's like a 5.5 minute trailer?
Yeah.
That's
Are they going to reveal more and more of it at other FanFests, or are we just going to have to wait?
I would assume we'll get another chunk of it after each FanFest. Well, no, because the next part we can't get until after 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
So that would be EU FanFest.
Right, yeah. I think that's probably when we'll see the full scale of it. And I think we'll also have some context from the announcements at Tokyo as well that are probably playing some sort of factor in the long version of the trailer. The Warrior of Light was fighting. Why was the Warrior of Light fighting the Lady in Red? Yoshi says, I'll leave that for speculation. There are parts you will only find out after playing 4.0. Also, that last clash between the two characters didn't exist in the original storyboard. When we cut out pieces to make the short version, the last part lacked some impact, so we asked the visual works at the last moment.
I'm sure they were thrilled about that.
Yeah, I know. We deliberately. He actually gets into the timetable that they did the trailer on, and it's insane the amount of like cuts and like re-edits that they had to do. It's just nuts. We deliberately made it to where it wasn't FF-ish this time. We already did the fantasy dark dragons, dragoons, and a scene where players can shout out with excitement in Heavensward. Our intention with the 4.0 trailer, the full version at least, is to maximize the surprise and expectation players will experience when they see all the dots connected after watching the whole trailer. I would like you to look forward to the whole picture, which will be revealed gradually.
Okay, that's cool.
It
is very fascinating nowadays, and he gets kind of granular on this PR, but it's really actually very interesting what he says. Nowadays, the methods of PR activities in the gaming industry have clearly changed, and in my opinion, I don't think a long and thorough extended advertisement fits new players. So I think that the mainstream is having a vertical launch of info right before the release. With the current market, unless you're a hardcore gamer, players don't get motivated and interested unless they can touch the game right after they find out about it. With MMORPGs, we have players who continue to play for long periods, so a mid to long-term advertising is also important. But when you release an expansion that is close to a new title, you have to consider both sides. For example, the finished version of the Dragon Quest builders, the Minecraft based on Dragon Quest, barely made it for release, and the following was a coincidence. But we were able to release the trial version 2 weeks before the actual release, which was the most effective of all trials we've ever released. This made me realize again that we've come to an era where it's a one-shot challenge to advertise everything right before the game comes out.
Well, we're kind of seeing this with Final Fantasy XV, where for a lot of people the delay and everything has really cooled the hype for it.
I think you're right. And I think that people are starting to question some of the, extra ancillary stuff, all of the DLC announcements. I mean, just copious amounts of DLC. Other announcements like the FF15 MMO that we talked about last week on Final Encountercast. Like all of these things sort of start to add up to something that makes fans a little bit skittish and a little bit worried about what the product is going to end up being.
I think it has something to do with the saturation of the market. Back in the day, there wasn't as much, so when a delay happened, it just made you want it more. Nowadays, if a delay happens, oh, cool, I got $50 to go spend on something else.
And actually, Yoshi-P addresses that. In the old era, game titles were announced a year or 2 years before release, and you would reveal tidbits of info every 6 months, and that was the norm. The market and the players were starving, and so players were able to wait for new info and spent time imagining about the game until it was actually released. But the modern market is different, where we have so many options, including other entertainment, to choose from. So that kind of info spread out over time will get wiped out by games that you can enjoy right at that moment. Indeed, we still have more than half a year worth of time until Stormblood, until early summer 2017. So a normal person will be slightly interested but forget about it after a while. So the announcement we just had wasn't for the mass majority, but it was aimed at all the current players first. We'll start by building up the ground with the players and raise the heat with the future FanFest, starting with Tokyo, and then we'll maximize the hype at the Frankfurt FanFest. Wow, that's a lot of Frankfurt FanFest. And from there on, we'll start a vertical PR right before the release for the new players. I think that's so insightful about the way that even marketing games has changed in the last 10 to 15 years.
It's nice to see like a level of self-awareness there that I'm not used to seeing from major developers anymore.
Yeah, that's actually an insight on how games are marketed to me, and I think that is endlessly fascinating. The next question about what percent of info about Stormblood did we get at the North American FanFest? When you think about the ratio of actual game time to level cap, release is pretty big, so it's a difficult question, but we haven't told you anything about new features. So if we're talking about the amount of announcements themselves, I'd say it's perfectly 1/3. But actually, the spoilers we have ready for Tokyo and Frankfurt FanFest are way huger. So,
wow, we really only got 1/3 of the information. That's shocking to me.
Yeah,
if that's accurate. That is
in a sense,
amazing.
it's only 1/3 of what they're going to announce. It's not 1/3 of like the stuff we still have to learn about Stormblood in general. It's like out of all the things they plan to announce, we got 1/3 of it.
I think he's talking about how like because we got the level cap announcement, quote unquote, that's like 1/3 of the game. So here's
it's 1/3 of their announcement.
I don't know. I don't think that's what he's saying. Really?
I don't know.
No, that's why he says if you're talking about the announcements themselves. They're saying that out of all the things we plan to announce, we gave 1/3 of it at FanFest. But there's obviously more stuff about Stormblood that they're not going to announce like right away.
Okay, well then there's not very much. If we have 1/3 of all the announcements they have, that's not very much unless they're putting a whole lot of weight in just announcing the Stormblood expansion.
You don't think that's a whole lot? We got quite a bit, I thought, at FanFest.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, they're going to announce 1/3 at each FanFest, obviously.
I was
into PS3.
I mean, I was really satisfied with the amount that we got out there. I mean,
revamp.
I get. It just seems.
What's sticking with you? What's the problem?
I just feel like I don't feel like we really got that much information. I mean, we got Stormblood, PS3 ending, and the inventory, and then
revamping the battle system.
But we don't know how it's going to be revamped. I think it's just. I don't think it's going to be that big.
You know they're reevaluating.
Someone didn't read the interview.
Ability bloat and all that shit.
Yeah.
We got the.
We know that they're getting the level cap increase. And that this expansion is going to focus on monks and Alamigo. Like, they confirmed all that stuff. And I think all of that...
We're going to get new zones. That's a big announcement, too.
Right. It was speculated before, but now it's confirmed. So I think that all counts as announcements. And that's why they're saying that in terms of what's spoilers is going to be bigger at the later FanFest because it's stuff that we hadn't, actually figured out yet.
Eureka. I
forgot about Eureka.
We didn't know anything about Eureka.
That's fair.
I mean, it's not like there was nothing. Come on now.
I just forgot a lot.
Drink it all away, huh?
Well, there was a lot of that out there.
Well, you're not wrong. Why choose Alamigo as the setting? 1.0 had a lot of foreshadowing, says Yoshi, especially involving Alamigo with Ul'dah. Even with A Realm Reborn, that ended up being the core with Ilberd going out of control and the Warrior of Light concerned to head towards Ishgard. To continue on with FF14, I think we can't avoid Alamigo. So it follows up with Alamigo was chosen pretty early on, not as quickly as Ishgard. When I took my current spot from the previous producer, I got the explanation that all this gothic dark fantasy elements will be found in Ishgard, but Ishgard wasn't in the game yet. Womp womp. And I thought that just having the lore for the place was meaningless. So I thought the first thing that I had to do was open the gates of Ishgard and let the players enter Ishgard first. Another reason was because we could turn the story into what revolves around dragoons and dragons, and that allowed us to choose it immediately. Add to that, with Japan being an extremely peaceful country, we thought Japanese players would have trouble accepting the values and settings Alamigo had. So I spent some time with my decisions, having two sides: one that rules and one that is ruled by. And advancing to take back your home or land wasn't a theme that I thought Japanese players would want to dive into. So I thought releasing Alamigo right after A Realm Reborn wouldn't have a positive response.
That's really interesting.
That makes sense.
And it does go to show you like how different we are as cultures, because like the whole Alamigo idea really spoke to all of us as Americans.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
I guess it never occurred to me that would be like not received well in Japan.
Well, and I think I think that Yoshi's absolutely right that with all of the lore and the fact that you could see Ishgard in the distance, that there was sort of an obligation to go there. Like, we kind of had.
Wasn't there like a whole bunch of holdovers from 1.0 where they were gonna go to Ishgard pretty soon, and then that just never panned out.
Yeah. I mean, Ishgard was supposed to be a part of 1.0. He even said it right there. Like that sort of confirms that like that was the intention. It was supposed to be a part of 1.0. They never even got that far in the development, and so they had probably even had assets modeled, because they had the city in the distance modeled, that they needed to figure out what to do with. So you have a palette to already sort of paint with, and I think it was smart. It was smart to go to Ishgard and let us go up to the the north and the west portion of the continent, and that this makes sense. Like when he says, like we can't continue to progress in FF14 without going to Alamigo. Like that makes a whole lot of sense.
If we went anywhere else, we'd just be thinking, so are we just ignoring Alamigo the whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They pretty much chose Alamigo as the setting right after the 3.0 launch. So another question: during Heaven's Word, there's a scene where you fight Raubon, who has the same name and weapon as the general of the Immortal Flames in Final Fantasy XI. But was that intended to send the message that Alamigo is where the next expansion takes place? If you ask if this was intentional, the answer would be no. There's a possibility that the staff did it unconsciously. Raubon is a character who originally won his way up the Colosseum with his own arms. I see what you did there. But we weren't able to use that setting in-game really well up to that point. In patch 2.55, we saw him go reckless once, and we can say that he's a character who is easy to move around when it comes face-to-face combat out of the three nations. So, just an interesting note about Raubon. That little nod to FF11, apparently not supposed to be intentional, not supposed to be any kind of Easter egg there. So since we're moving forward to free Alamigo, do you have any plans on how to represent the lore, like having the Alamigan resistance fighting the Empire in all sorts of places?
Ooh, this is the question I've been waiting on.
Yes, we are trying to challenge gimmicks that we haven't had before. The story is originally about taking back a land that is politically occupied, so we'd like to make it look proper as an MMORPG. It's about time I wanted to put an end to the three nations of Eorzea not doing anything because of political reasons / considerations. So we'll be doing something new. I can't say much more than that, but it's a Final Fantasy title after all, so there are parts where other MMOs wouldn't spend their costs on that we intend to use our resources on to hype up the story.
Is that a shot at World of Warcraft?
Might be. Might be.
I mean, it's basically the fact that everyone says that Final Fantasy MMOs are great because they spend more time on the story, where your average MMO spends more time on like battle or PvP. So they're like, oh, I keep going back to Final Fantasy because of its great story.
Right.
They always said that about 11 too. I knew people who played both back in college, and they're like, I just keep coming back to 11 because the story is so good. So, I mean, that makes sense. That's what Final Fantasy is known for, is its characters and story. So that doesn't surprise me.
I definitely think that was just sort of like a little bit of a nod to say, yeah, we're going to put some good narrative elements here.
Good.
Definitely. They're spending the money. That's good. That's always good to hear. Yeah, right.
Square Enix is taking the money and running.
They confirmed new Beastmen.
Yeah.
New Beastmen.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Kind of expected.
Are there any chances we'll have new areas outside of Alamigo? For example, areas that are located in the north of Ishgard? Answer: I'm not sure about that.
Yoshi.
That's not a no.
You should be sure of something like that.
So it goes on to ask like Ilselbard or Doma. And like we said today, we would like you to free El Amigo. From there on, it's up to your imagination. So he's really leaving it open to speculation. Speculate where you're going to
say anything.
Yeah, he's like, you're working towards El Amigo. That's what I'm willing to tell you right now. That's what I get from that. During the keynotes, you announced that flying will be available in the 4.0 areas, and that was unexpected in a way. It's definitely fun to fly around, but it's difficult to implement that, right? Yoshi-P answers that it is difficult, but the specifications are complete, so it's all up to how we create the maps. Also, when it comes to an MMORPG, you'll see a lot of refusal from players when you take away something convenient that's already in the game. So the new areas are basically designed with flying in mind.
Yeah, flying is like smartphones. You can't go back.
Yeah.
Once you've had it.
The cat's out of the bag at this point.
There is still no plans to add flying into the 2.0 zones. So, just so you know.
That makes sense. They weren't made with like the Y-axis.
Yeah, no, there would have to be a lot of retooling of those zones to make them work.
It's a lot of effort I wouldn't want them spending on 2.0 zones.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, totally. So this is, I thought, a pretty insightful question. Are there other modes of transportation apart from flying? Yoshi-P says it's not limited to transportation, but we do have the intention to up the game experience by one more stage. So we'd like you to wait for further announcements.
Swimming.
The next question goes on to say, well, when you think about the Final Fantasy order, you start by walking, then you enter the sea, and then you fly. Now in FF14, you can already fly, which means that the only option remaining is diving under the water? The answer to that is it's nice to be able to dive underwater, isn't it? We all we can do is around the water is be around the water, even though people wear swimsuits and good graphics.
Maybe we'll get our ships back like in
1.0. So we get a Lapras and we can surf around on it, right?
No. I don't think that.
The next, what this means is
I could have that crossover.
No.
What's better than flying? Going through space to the Garlean space station on the moon.
Oh my
god! We
god!
got to go to space in FF7.
Shut the fuck.
And FF4, bro.
FF8.
Oh, that's true. Dude, we got to go to space in a lot of. FF9 had that other planet too.
Yeah, it's not unusual to go to space.
No, it's not. So
it's
maybe
just
that'll be next.
Silly.
It's not unusual.
After El Amigo, the next. He said talking about going to Garlemald, right? They probably have some secret shit on the moon. We've seen the moon already.
Yeah, we have. We do know that it's modeled. Riding a boat sounds fun as well. Yoshi-P answers to that. The map suddenly converts into graphics with 8-bit dots, and you travel around Hydaelyn, and then players start to argue because only the party leader can steer the ship. Sounds interesting.
I love it.
Oh my god.
Yeah!
I love how they're not.
Man, Yoshi would make a great LBR host.
I think you're right.
think he would too.
I think you're right.
We should try and get them in touch with them, have them start LBR Japan.
And then the question here, after seeing the new areas in El Amigo, the lighting and atmosphere seems different to the current ones. Is there a concept for these new areas? Yoshi-P says, I personally like the 3.0 art style. It fits the current generation and it's not over the top, clearly leaving the FF-ish beauty and also having the proper darkness as where it's needed. With this experience, we'd like to explore new expressions. The recent orders I've given are about the gap between each of the areas. I especially emphasize when it. I'm sorry. I'm going to try that whole thing again. I especially emphasize it when we create new dungeons, like asking them to aim for one level above to make the color of the sky in some all fantasy-ish. Art designs tend to try to pull colors from reality when they have the technology to create realistic pictures. So that's why I tell them to aim for what you rarely see in photos in the real world. That the doesn't look real but has a fantasy feel to it. That doesn't mean we're adding shaders, but it's more about the potential of originality and ingenuity hidden under each of the designs, and I believe that there is a mountain full of ideas and color coordinations. by changing how they draw clouds or the astro weapons are made, can add another variety of art. Just using the finest and latest technology isn't original, and I think there's a lot of space for improvement out there.
I love hearing that. Yeah. I love hearing that. Like, just because we can make it look hyper realistic, you guys aren't playing Final Fantasy for hyper realism.
It's not final reality.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think having a very clear vision on what you want your art design to be is really important, especially for a game as big as this one. There are a lot of elements about Eorzea that have to come together, and for those that played 1.0, I think that you remember a time just like I do when some of those elements didn't really mesh very well. They weren't very cohesive, and it made for a little bit of a mess of a game. And I think that ever since Yoshi-P has taken the helm, rather, but I guess realm sort of works there,
or the reins,
the helm of the realm. As soon as he kind of took direction, like it seemed like a lot of those disparate elements seemed to come together. And again, I think that he needs a lot of credit for that, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. So, all right, I feel like I have read a lot. Who wants to take the section on new jobs?
Oh, I'll grab that.
All right, then.
So, grab by the nuts. Or the pussy.
So he confirms that new roles will not be added, but leaves open the possibility...
Boats and hoes.
Thanks.
Thank
boats
you.
And hoes.
Boats and hose.
Boats and hose.
Okay.
All right.
Hose and boats, even.
That said, he has left open the possibility we could see new roles in the future. That's humongous, I think. We've been functioning under the Holy Trinity now forever.
It's more like
don't want to shoot themselves in the foot if they ever do decide to do that.
I think they're just leaving the possibility open. But yeah, I would say we're definitely not going to see it at any point in 4.0. And a
lot of people got to revise their predictions for Red Mage now.
Yeah.
The two shaded characters on the job announcement screen have no secret meaning. Does not indicate we are only getting 2 jobs either.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was so obvious. I don't know why people kept complaining about that. It was very obviously just a generic silhouette of a man and a woman.
It's just speculation run rampant. It's fine.
That's what people do.
Yeah.
So he's going to leave how many jobs we'll see open to speculation.
Of course.
Of course. Well, we'll hear more at future FanFest, I'm sure.
And we'll hear.
I'm almost positive that it's going to be 3. I have a feeling that it's going to be 3.
Yep. So we'll hear more about new jobs and quote various topics at Tokyo FanFest.
What about hot topics?
Sure.
Do you think they'll be hot?
The monk one, sure.
Can you add anything productive to this conversation, please?
I could try.
Do that.
Would you? A little?
And he's confirmed the Warrior of Light will be wearing new monk job-specific equipment.
In the trailer he is?
Yes. That is the new GSE for Monk in the...
To be wearing, yep.
In the trailer, yep.
They were then questioned, how about the women's gear? And he replied, sorry, no comment on the female outfit. So
what is Yoshi-P hiding?
No comment on the lady in red.
So we're probably not going to get the outfit then, I bet.
Cash up.
Please look forward to doing the cash up.
Cash up.
They kind of pressed the woman was fluttering while she was fighting, so I thought that might be a dancer instead of a monk. And he replied, we thought we would hear those voices, and it seems like people in Japan are slightly leaning towards dancer. Doesn't really answer anything, but okay.
What does that mean, though? He chose his words very carefully.
He did. Question, the woman in the artwork by Mr. Amano has a dagger as her weapon, but are they claws or hidden daggers? And he replied, regarding the image illustration by Mr. Amano, after telling him the concept, it was all up to his inspiration from there on, so it's not like I gave him a specific request. God, he is dodging all these questions. So it's dangerous to speculate based on that artwork? Maybe dangerous, and he laughs. When it comes to work with Mr. Amano, I give him details on the lore we're aiming for the story, the meaning behind the title, and what we want him to draw in the background. Then we have a short discussion, and after he says, the image is starting to float in my head. I leave the rest to him, and that's the general stance I have.
Hashtag new Juxta's Mike.
So basically he was like, yeah, the artist did some shit that I didn't. I really do think he's trying to downplay it a lot.
He's definitely trying to say there is a lot of artists he's taking his own prerogative with it.
Maybe he's dancing around.
Oh, Pops.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
That
Pops.
was pretty good. That was pretty good.
So, and they asked a very insightful question. So, what was the message you told him this time? And he replied, the flag. The liberators and the flag is the concept. It's not likely they are conscious about being liberators, but when an artist from the future were to draw they will probably be called liberators. When an artist from the future tries to draw them, they will probably be called liberators. They didn't make a flag for the resistance, but they just have a worn-out flag to symbolize their unity. Not a single mark on it, and the people who agree to fight for freedom are the ones to become the picture. And that is what I told Mr. Amano. Within them, the warrior of light and the woman in the red dress is included, and those two are the only ones where I specify what they are wearing.
I totally love Game Watch's response to this because it's just deep.
Straight up, he just realized deep.
I imagine like they're chilling out after FanFest is done, right? They're passing like a joint back and forth,
smoking a bowl,
right? Yeah, and the Game Watch guy's just like. Deep, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's, oh my God, that's so funny.
So his response to that was, that's basically how I always ask Mr. Amano for an illustration. For heaven's word, the concept was an evil dragon and 12 knights, but Mr. Amano tends to change the number of knights based on his inspiration. So Minagawa, lead UI artist and patch logo designer, and I have some trouble there. I've always been a big fan of Mr. Amano, so it's always fun to work with him. So what he said the only thing I need is a dragon and 12 knights, and like Mr. Miles like, no, we're going with a different number of knights.
This is Yoshi saying, those fucking artists.
That's hilarious.
Just like what we do. Those artists.
I know.
And that's basically what he had to say about jobs, but they went on to lore. That's exciting. So during the main scenario quest, the second emperor, Varus Zosgalvis, talked about the right to conquer Eorzea and how small of a matter it was compared to the fate of the star. Will the Garlean Empire show their side and vision of the threat of Ardor?
Now, we've actually done quite a bit of speculation about this and about the new villain, what is it, Xenos? Xenos. And there are some really interesting statements about what we're going to be seeing. I remember that at FanFest, one of Ethis's predictions was that Xenos was going to end up being a monster that we have not ever seen the likes of in Eorzea, because each of the villains, or antagonists, really, you can kind of see a little bit of sympathy in there. Like there's, if you look at their argument, like some of Gaius's arguments, and even some of what the Asians are doing, their machinations, we don't really know what is actually happening. So they may be working toward their own ends, and just some really interesting statements about the motivation of Xenos here. So let's hear about that.
So his answer was, that might have to wait until the 4.x series. The Warrior of Light's view during the expansion will be all about focusing on the ongoing battle to win freedom from the Garlean Empire's rule. In A Realm Reborn, the Warrior of Light prevented the invasion of the Garlean Empire, then he or she put an end to the Dragonsong War, and finally the alliance consisted of 4 nations just came back. You will see a glimpse of the ideal of the Empire, but it will be further down the line where we dig deeper into it. During the Please Look Forward to It stage we had today, we were asked if we have 5.0 in mind, but we have a brief image of how it's going to end. We'll continue to sneak foreshadowing here and there and gradually build up the story.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Hasio, I just saw that you said you donated to Mute Juxta's mic. Where, I don't know what did that notification not go off?
Yeah, I said we didn't. No. I don't remember hearing it.
I heard it.
Really?
You heard it?
What?
You heard it? I don't think it had. I don't know that it went off on our screen.
It definitely didn't.
Okay, all right. I'm not going crazy. All right, so I'm gonna just have it resend.
Mute Juxta's mic.
All right. Maybe we just didn't hear it. Maybe
I definitely heard it.
Maybe we have a short in the headphone cable, so sometimes if we don't have
the chat heard it.
Oh,
okay.
Man, yeah,
I just resent it again.
It popped on the screen, but we didn't hear it.
Okay, sorry. We appreciate that, and also there. There we
go.
I wasn't ignoring you. We didn't hear it. I don't know why. That's weird.
So they ask, we heard a huge cheer when you talked about new primals. Will the flow stay the same where Asians lead certain races to summon a primal, and will that continue? And he replied, it won't be all about Asians. The problem of it getting boring if it's all about Asians is one reason, and what the Asians are currently doing is a measure of interference in domestic affairs. When it comes to a different region, they'll have a different approach to the matter. With Ishgard, that was the Dragon's Eye. The Asians are trying to dry up the ether to destroy the equilibrium of the world so they can unite the other worlds, and summoning the primals is only one of those methods. The Black Asians and White Asians have a slightly different way of thinking, so the story might expand from there. However, the Asians might have a lighter role in 4.0, and their presence might be forgettable. That's interesting.
Why are Black Asians so forgettable? Black Asians' lives matter.
Oh my God! There we go.
There it is. Good night, everybody.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So there. I mean, I think that Yoshi-P sort of just echoed the same sort of sentiment that I had put forth. That like a lot of the other antagonists do have some kind of point of view. At least, like they have some sort of point of view, and it sounds like we're going to be getting something very different with Xenos.
So the new character Xenos doesn't look like a typical villain. Maybe it's because he climbed his own way up the military, but it seems like there might be a crack in between him and the other Garlean generals, like Regula, and maybe Xenos is hated by them. I have a feeling Xenos might have something in common with the Warrior of Light. The answer there is this answer won't be about Xenos, but everything about Regula will be revealed after patch 3.5.
Interesting.
We'd like to collect all the foreshadowing up to now and connect the story to 4.0. Some mysteries about the world will be left unsolved, but the other small foreshadowing in the 3.x series should be resolved.
Wow.
So yeah, he didn't say anything about Xenos there. He wasn't kidding. You said Xenos will be a totally different character to any of what we've seen. How is he different? And the answer is, all I can say is nobody will be able to sympathize with him.
Interesting.
Damn.
That includes you, Aniro.
I don't know, man.
Even you will not be able to sympathize.
We'll see.
He's going to be a bastard.
Yeah.
Question. He has a sheath, saya for a katana, and a sword. So then he must be... And the answer is, what he actually looks like and his personality aren't that related, but his weapon is a gunblade. Note, all generals from each 14 Legion has a weapon called Gun plus Weapon name. Examples are Nail's Gun Halberd, Regula's Gun Bastard Sword, and so on. By the way, after the 2.0 main scenario ended, the players were sick of the three nations talking about their public stance, and quite a lot of players gave us feedback that they wanted to work for the Empire. But with 4.0...
I love that. I love that. I'm not alone. Yes!
I think we all said that at one point or another, but with 4.0, we won't be hearing those voices anymore.
Wow.
Xenos will be a different type of villain, or should I say, an opponent you will face.
Holy shit. Dude, that sounds dark as
Wait, read the next one.
Yeah, and they said, like Kefka, and he said, comparing them will spoil the image, so I'll avoid that question, but Xenos is the son of the current Emperor.
Interesting.
These guys are going to be bastards.
It sounds like it,
now,
yeah.
We've always made jokes that the Garleans do everything spectacularly badly. They're almost a joke by the end of 2.0.
I know, right? They're like the Keystone Cops.
Right, this is going to turn it on its ear. They're going to be bastards.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've laid low for the entirety of the 3.0 expansion. We haven't seen much of them outside of, what they're doing up with the Warring Triad up in Aziz La. But that's it. Outside of that, they've been fairly removed from our,
They had the one time where they showed up at like Oxundu, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah, yeah, and that was really, I think, on their way to Aziz La. So yep. I think that unlocking the and gaining access to Aziz La was sort of a big deal for them, and now they're working on something that is really, I mean, it's something big's going down. So interesting.
I got it. Xenos is going to increase the cost of all prescriptions by 15,000%.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Why did I give you a mic?
I don't know. So just like how Ultima Weapon was buried under the ground, it seems like there are Allegan ruins remaining in Girabanya. Will the Allegan heritage play a role in any of the content in 4.0? Please wait for patch 3.5 for now. All right. All right, this question's from Nika. It's I love Astinian. Will he show up again in 4.0? And the answer there is, I can't answer that question at the moment. What Astinian will be doing in the future was already decided before patch 3.3. He might show up again, but what sort of situation, what sort of gear, and what he's going to say is something I'd like you to look forward to.
So yes, but...
Maybe he's the Alamegan Prince.
So that means he's coming back in 4.0. And the answer there is, will he show up during the 4.0 main scenario? It's up to your imagination. I personally want him to join the Scions, but with his personality, even if you did invite him, he'd probably say I'm not interested. And I hate being in a swarm.
He's one of those. Yeah, he's definitely one of those personalities. Like, I wouldn't want to be a part of any club that would have me. Yeah,
I like what Birdo just said, because they said what kind of gear he'll be wearing. Assyrian Samurai confirmed.
Oh, God.
No.
Nika has her new Bay for eternity.
Stop. Oh, my God.
Birdo, I love you.
Don't even.
I mean, he's going to show up because he realizes that being a Dragoon is dumb. He took off his helmet already. Remember, he's off on a journey, and he discovers Samurai and falls in love because it's the best job ever.
Okay, so...
All right, here's the question that,
this next part of the interview, I have a lot of very, very, very mixed feelings about.
Yeah, I'll bet. So here we go. With the new level cap increase from 60 to 70, a new story will begin. But are we going to move forward after completing the story up to patch 3.5? And the answer there is clearing all the scenarios for the 3.x series is the condition to move on.
That is good. That's good. That is good.
It's a matter of if we'll add a jumping potion or not.
No, don't. Do not add jumping potion. No.
I think this another mention of it means it's coming.
I feel like even if they did, it might just be a level jumping. It still makes it sound like that in order to get to the next area, you have to clear the story. I don't know if he would make a story jumping potion.
Okay.
Maybe a leveling jumping
That's interesting.
Still,
I don't know if it's necessary, but
all of these different fucking, different conditions that you're putting on it, like, it'll be okay if will it? I don't know.
All right, let's just move on from there, which means the story will continue on from Heavensward.
Westinian, if joins hope it's so I can murder him also LBR hype.
Thank you.
Did we not get like the alert sound there?
No, we
didn't. Started talking.
No,
it's funny because I heard it too. I heard it on the having the Twitch alert open, so I'm not sure what
is going on.
I don't know. That's really strange, but okay. At least we heard that one. Thank you, Chili.
So that means the story...
And also, yes, screw Estinian.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
The story will continue on from Heavensward. The answer is yes. There's no doubt about 4.0 being a story continuing from the end of the 3.x series. Is the story included in patch 3.5 going to be the finale to connect to patch 3.4, or to connect 3.4 to 4.0? You'll see most of what's going on, and a lot of things will join dots with dots. Also, what we announced today at FanFest will be connected to those other dots. The puzzle pieces are spread all over the place at the moment in no specific order now, but those will get organized and turned into its proper form.
Okay. 4 dots.
So does that mean not 3.55 story?
I don't. Well, no. What I hope that means is I hope that means that there's foreshadowing at play that we're not even conscious of. And I mean, we did get a lot of that in the move between 2.0 and 3.0. I mean, remember at 2.55, the amount of things that were made clear that were very vague or very offhand or one note mentions throughout the entirety of 2.0, they really came into focus at the end of 2.55. And that's what I'm sort of hoping also is going to happen here, because we got a full resolution to the Dragon Song War. We got a pretty full resolution to the Warriors of Darkness. And so I've got to wonder, what are the pieces that are in play already if 3.5 is going to be such a huge setup for 4.0. If it's only the Alamegan stuff, then okay, I've seen that coming from a mile away. But it's always the stuff that I didn't expect, that I'm most interested by, and that I think gets my imagination running the most.
I think it's got to be the Alamegan stuff and Omega.
Yeah, because there definitely does seem to be a big nod towards that at the end of the current MSQ. So
they say you want us to enjoy that for the time being, and they say the live feeling where the patch moves forward and using the new info revealed from other sources to solve the puzzle is the fun part.
Yeah, see, okay, that tells me that they're at least thinking about it, which is good. So,
all right, here we go.
Oh boy,
deep breaths, deep breaths, everyone.
Yep, here we go.
In a past interview, we asked about the jump potion, and it's still not in the game for the global version. If you were to add it into the game, I'm guessing it'll be when patch 4.0 is released. What are your current plans? The ratio of implementing it is around 7-3, and we have read the feedback from the community. It seems like the negative reactions are fewer than we expected.
Seriously?
What?
Not from us, they weren't. I remember touching on this subject in a different interview, and again, the feedback we got was, as long as you don't destroy the balance in community, we'll leave the final decision to you.
Man, that's a lot of faith that's being put into Yoshi-P there. I don't think I have that much faith. I think that the jumping potion is one of the worst ideas that I've heard.
Of course, it's not like it's already decided, and we'll continue to consider listening to everyone's reactions. Even after today's keynotes, when a person asked if we need to clear all the 3.x content on the internet, another person answered that's exactly why we need a jump potion. And after seeing those debates, it felt like our players are seriously thinking about FF14 in the community. Oh,
well,
God.
he's not wrong about that. That at least the debates are happening. And again, I'm going to say that no, it's not a good idea. The reason being is that you cut out a huge portion of your game, and it really just feels like caving to that whole like gimme now mentality. And I fucking hate that shit.
Everyone, please get on the official forums and say no. They are still listening.
Or just express your opinion.
Yeah.
Express what your opinion is, whatever your opinion is.
As long as it's no.
But I can't express enough how much of a concession that feels like. And it also it's such a lame concession to try to attract quote unquote new players, right? Like that's why it's done, is to try to support new players and to try to make the game attractive to new players. But when the problem is that you're bleeding your talent from the top portion of your game and then creating an atmosphere whereby new players coming in are rewarded for doing absolutely nothing, then you're going to get a player base that really is just not even competent at basic mechanics, basic everyday stuff. You'll have people failing dungeons at a regular rate. Like that's the kind of stuff that gets me really irritated, because it's stuff that the game teaches you intrinsically through the process of leveling, through the process of going to 1 to 60. And if you don't pick up on it, then that's one thing. But if Square Enix gives you that fast forward button and doesn't put the onus on you to learn the shit, then it's just all it's going to do is deteriorate the talent pool in this game, and that's unfortunate.
So they follow up on that saying, let's say you were going to implement the jump potion for the global version. How will it work? For example, will you jump right up to level 60 by drinking one bottle, or will you stop at 50? He said, we already have it in the game for the Chinese and Korean client, but you don't need multiple potions. It will always just be one. At the moment, you jump to level 50, but this will change into a potion that allows you to jump to level 60 in the Chinese and Korean servers. If we had a level 50 potion when the level cap is 70, even those who agree on adding the jump potion will be upset because it's not complete. Those players who disagree will disagree if it's level 50 to 60, and it'll be meaningless if players can't use it to catch up to play with their friends. So it will basically always just let you jump right to the level before the old level cap. Being able to play with your friends is important, so WoW distributed it to all players who came back right before Legion. FF14 still doesn't have that many expansions, but if the game has as many expansions as WoW, I think more people can enjoy the new expansion with the way WoW did it. This sounds to me like Yoshi doesn't really want it.
I mean, and you realize he also just talked about it being a level jump, not a story jump.
Yeah, and he did, yes. But at the same time, the way I read that answer to me, it sounds like he doesn't really want it.
I think the biggest problem with the jump potion is that 1 to 50 isn't that large of a portion of the game compared to all the story, all the main storyline quests, which you still have to do. So I don't really even feel like it's really solving a problem in its current implementation.
Right.
You still have to go through the MSQ.
So it just makes all of that, the MSQ, feel like a chore.
Exactly.
Instead of your guided tour throughout the world.
Right.
And I think that's a bummer, because like that is a really nice experience. It is, I've said it before, it's very theme parkish. You get taken to very nice zones, and you get to, get a smattering of all of the different activities that FF14 has to offer. It pretty much directs you into that stuff. You'll be doing fates at some point. You know what I mean? Like, and all of that stuff, I think that is really beneficial to the experience, and making sure that you're not falsely rewarding players who are just going to bail on this game in 60 days anyway. You know, like that's the thing that bugs me, is that, you know, most of the time when decisions like this happen, it's not to, you know, it doesn't actually end up attracting that many new players and then keeping them there. They'll do the jump potion, they'll play for a little bit with their friends, and then they'll fuck off to Titanfall 2 or whatever the fuck is the next, you know, thing that they want to play. And so, you know, like, I don't think it does anything to actually build your player base, and it's sort of like a rite of passage. And again, Juxta, I think that you're exactly right when you say that it doesn't even fix the problem at hand, you know, and I think that there's really not even that much of a problem, because it does not actually take you that long to get from 1 to 60 these days.
Right. Exactly.
So, you know, like, that is, I think, the most glaring issue, is that it'll cut out a huge expectation for skill on the player base, and it just doesn't solve the problem. You know, if someone's going to complain that the story is gated, they're still going to have to invest nearly as much time going through and sitting through those cutscenes as they are going through and actually playing the game and advancing their character. Yep. Why do people want to skip that? Why do people want to cut that part out of the MMO experience? To me, that's some of the most fun parts.
There's people who say they skip cutscenes.
I've never understood that, though. Why?
I mean, some people
go play a fucking different game. Go play a game that's not an MMO.
When Final Fantasy MMOs especially are known so much for their story, why skip it if you're going to play? Like, go play an MMO that doesn't focus on story.
Because I want to raid with my friends, even though I won't have gear good enough and I don't have any of the skills necessary to be able to do any of that stuff.
Do you think this is why they're revamping the battle system? Because he did say it might make it easier for players.
No, I don't. Especially because we're going to get into the a little bit of the intention behind the revamp, and after reading that, I don't think that it's going to be necessarily any easier, but that it's going to streamline a couple of things in rotations right now that are just kind of
nuisances.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you told me I was gonna be excited by these interviews.
Oh, I love. Look, this is a rough.
Part?
Yeah, we're in a rough patch, but there's some good stuff here. Don't worry.
Right. So, fun experience isn't all about the leveling process, and it's what comes after. Working your way up the ladder is fun. Content beyond that is fun, but if you need to spend too much time, you physically won't be able to play the game anymore, and we want to avoid that. I don't deny the fun of leveling, and if I had the time, I'd enjoy it and I'd like it, but I don't have the time. Did Yoshi just say he doesn't have time to level?
Dude, I just think.
I mean, I get he's busy, but
then level cap your game, and let's do horizontal progression for a while.
The level cap.
Yeah, knock it off with the vertical. If that's how you feel, then knock it off with the vertical progression shit.
You can fix this, Yoshi.
Yeah. I mean, am I crazy? Like, I feel like if you want to address ability blow, like, instead of having all of these different processes to be able to address all of these different problems, why not just level cap the fucking game and work on horizontal progression if you don't like leveling?
Ta-da! These next questions are kind of cool, though. So 4.0 will raise the level cap, but what's the vision you have on how players level from 60 to 70? The flow will be where you level your first job by doing the MSQ, and when you reach the ending of 4.0, you'll be around level 70. And they follow that up with, I remember I had a hard time in Heaven's Ward. Time after time, my level would be too low to receive the next MSQ, so I go to focus on leveling, and I couldn't focus on the MSQ. With 4.0, we reduced the ratio of side quests and increased the ratio of MSQs instead. I think that's awesome.
That's good.
Because the side quests got really annoying in Heaven's Ward.
Moogle.
I mean, yeah, they did, but they were even more annoying in A Realm Reborn. So, I mean, I think it's all definitely moving in the right direction.
Sounds like to me they're just shifting all the optional side quests to being main storyline quests now.
Maybe
that's what I read.
Look, well, it's not. I don't know. Like, I don't remember that much tedious bullshit outside of the Moogles. Like the rest of it felt like sort of like a stripped down version of what we had already been given in A Realm Reborn. So are they just going to strip that down even further? Like I don't know what they're kind of driving at here.
So you mean the total amount of MSQs or the volume of each MSQ?
Oh, yeah.
And they say the amount of total quests hasn't changed. For example, let's say we had 300 MSQs and 200 side quests in patch 3.0. With 4.0, it will be like 350 MSQs and 150 side quests.
So yeah, they're just changing the classification.
What
is this bullshit?
MSQs give you more experience, though.
That's true.
Okay.
Rather than having side quests where we run out of ideas, we imagine players will be able to level properly if we have a deeper story for the MSQ and spend our resources that way.
Okay.
That sounds
fine.
great.
Good. Hey, good.
Also, Heaven's Ward was the first expansion, so we cut down the XP you can get from earlier dungeons to be careful. With 4.0, we'll have the XP from dungeons based on how much we gain now after the boost to XP from 3.x dungeons. So we'll have a relatively balanced out leveling process. Good. All right, well, I like the idea of a deeper MSQ. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, just it sort of still depends on the right. I mean, if you say that there are going to be more MSQs, does that mean that there's going to be more relevant plot? Like, how do you?
That's kind of what he says there. If he wants a deeper MSQ,
please go fetch me a pail of water. I don't want that class.
Go fetch me a cup of Mountain Dew.
They had that question like 2.4, where even Minfilia looks embarrassed to be asking you to do stuff.
All right.
You'll adjust it.
Rowena calls you out on it.
Yeah. Oh, God. So you'll adjust it to where we rotate the MSQ in dungeons for leveling. And they say, yes, the ideal for players to move forward and enter the next area smoothly where the next story starts. So, cool.
Okay.
With the level cap increase, I think the players are mostly interested about the new actions. Are we going to learn a new move every 2 levels like Heaven's Ward? And he says, we changed it a little. We'll definitely have new actions, but we got feedback from the dev team that having a quest every 2 levels and learning a new action from each quest was a little tough to create a story for. So there are actions you learn by just reaching a certain level and actions you learn through job quests.
Okay.
Oh, so we're going to have less job quests, though?
I'm fine with that. I hated like every 2 levels just like interrupting what I was doing to go back to that random spot in Surthus.
I think one of the coolest things about this game too is that each job has its own unique story. Is it only going to be like 2 new quests like every 5 levels? That's kind of lame.
Okay, no. Here's the problem. When I was doing my ninja, very first 50 to 60, I was completely disinterested with the story because it was every like 8 hours I'd be able to have a new job quest. But now that I'm going through with my new levels, like my monk, I just wait until I'm level 60, do them all at once, and then it's like, oh, the story's actually pretty good. So I hope they do something more like that, where you just get a big jump of it. Or a big chunk, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to have like if they're only doing 2 quests, like it can be as much content, but maybe just in 2 quests that are longer.
Right.
Like, I just didn't like having to stop every 2 levels to go back and get my new move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yes.
I could see that. So let's talk about some of these battle system improvements. So factors like maintaining blood of the dragon or chain buffs won't change. The response to this is pretty interesting. Until we recently build up and balance it out, nothing is final and established. So please listen to this as an example that this is a portion of all the adjustments. Let's talk about a buff with a duration. There's a possibility we'll make Chain last forever, but instead of allowing players to gain a DPS bonus by extending Chain by going through a certain procedure, it's... What?
Enochian.
When you whisper it, that's really helpful.
But I like to whisper.
Yeah, it's not helpful.
It's ominous.
He was lying.
It's really just an example, but once you activate Enochian, a timer starts clicking like how it is right now. And once the timer hits 0, it auto activates again. And no matter how many times it hits 0, it basically won't disappear. However, if you refresh Enochian by yourself, you gain a bonus. And that the gap between a black mage who auto refreshes and by letting it run out of time and a black mage who refreshes Enochian by themselves will spread slowly, which equals the gap between their DPS and player skills.
That is interesting.
That is very interesting.
Here's another example. You activate ley lines, and right after an AoE targets you. So you run out, and then again another AoE targets you. And the situation. What?
That's the bane of every Black Mage's existence right there.
Okay, and situations like this where you don't get to stay in your ley lines occur. People might think, I wish I could use ethereal manipulation to move back on my ley lines. So allowing players to do that will be a factor that influences the difference between a Black Mage who walks back on ley lines and a Black Mage who uses ethereal manipulation to get back on it. Both Black Mages are using Fire 4 properly, but that Black Mage has the specific buff and is dealing more damage is the image we're aiming for. At the moment, if you fail to refresh your own Enochian, it's Fire versus Fire 4, and the gap is too large.
That sounds
really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's exactly how this job should be right now.
And if they could extend that to Dragoon with Blood of the Dragon, it is like super frustrating when you can't use your 2 final moves because that's gone down. Like your DPS is pitiful during that time.
Yeah, like if you let Enochian drop, which is why sometimes Black Mage is level summoner for certain endgame fights, because there are some where Black Mages just don't ever get to stand still. You lose Enochian, you have to use Fire 1 instead of Fire 4, and it's horrible on your DPS.
Right. Right. And I mean, again, like dude, like I said, there is some really, really good stuff in these interviews, and I understand that most people don't have time to sit through the something like 16 pages that this interview ended up being, and that's why we wanted to talk about it here today on the show, so that you guys could have a more informed discussion moving forward, because there's a lot of little stuff in here that most people who would have tapped out 2 pages ago didn't make their way to reading. So that's why we're reading a huge chunk of this here today on the show. By the way, if you want to call the show, Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. We invite your calls on anything. If you want to talk about anything in these interviews, we're going to be getting to the Famitsu here in a little bit. There's not much there. The Game Watch interview was so comprehensive and so deep that most everything that they answered in the Famitsu article was also answered in this Game Watch interview. But let's continue on hearing about some of these battle adjustments, because this is, I think,
new stretch goal. Reach a certain amount of Patreon contributions. Nika will start a YouTube ASMR channel where she whispers correct pronunciations of Final Fantasy words.
Nice one.
It'll always be Eno-chain to me, Nico.
I like that, Mr. Jag.
Fast talk will never be best Duke to me, so I don't know about that one.
So let's hear a little bit more about some of these UI changes and some of these battle adjustments that are going to be coming in 4.0. So, are those UIs going to be different for each job? For those jobs with a duration on their buffs, we are intending to try to make the UI dedicated specifically for those jobs. It's not finalized yet, but an example is where we organized a dark side gauge, tentatively, only available for Dark Knights, and the UI design is also Dark Knight-ish. The dark side gauge management will be done visually by looking at that UI. An example for Monk's Grease Lightning.
Pronounce that?
Holy cow!
Yeah, there's a
Shippu Jinrai.
Shippu Jinrai.
Okay, an example for Monk's Grease Lightning, which doesn't have a gauge, but we will give it 3 round orbs as monk-specific UI, and one of them shines with 1 stack of Grease Lightning. When you have 3 stacks, it will be like a super combo gauge from a fighting game that makes it obvious you're maxed out, and you can use a specific skill by using it all. It's just an example. If we make it more into a game where you have to stare at your buff icons, it will be tough for new players. So we decided to make it more graphical and visual. It's also so players can have an easier time controlling the jobs by making it easy to understand.
That sounds super cool.
It's cool, but what about those people who have crappy PCs and play with all the graphics turned off?
Fuck 'em.
Like, would you not be able to see it since you don't have a buff
get a
anymore?
What about Darkstar and his PS3?
Get a PS4.
This is exactly why we have to drop PS3 support.
Right.
Yes, Nika.
So we can have nice things.
True
What do
story.
you mean, yes, Nika? What are you Nika-ing me for?
You're campaigning for basically PS3 support.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that I used to have a really shitty laptop, and I know the feels of having to turn all the graphics down.
Well, you got to upgrade then.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
these sound like UI elements. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it does say a monk-specific UI, so
Yeah.
maybe only you will see it. Okay.
I think this will be super cool.
I mean, if you think, you have like a thing of 3 orbs. I mean, that's not. I don't think that's going to take a whole lot of resources up on your screen. It sounds like, this all sounds like really fascinating, good changes. And I mean, these are huge fundamental underpinnings that we're talking about with the battle system here. Let's see. So the current player need to put their buffs on their hotbar and place them closer to their character to check recast. Yoshi-P answers, rather than writing this ability uses all your grease lightning stacks when used on the tooltips, emptying all the orbs is visually better and easier to understand. So we want to thoroughly apply that to each job. So it's not really changing the idea of grease lightning stacks, but it's giving you a different visual representation to let you know when that's ready, when it's down, and how that buff is progressing. Thunder, for example, will still need to be managed, but Enochian management will be removed from the buff management and become easier to understand, and so on. Currently, you need to stare at Thunder, Enochian ley lines, and they are all buff icons, and the content you need to play also forces you to look at AoEs, and it's too bland. I'm glad that they recognize that is boring, because it is. Now, for as much as I love FF14, we've talked about this in the past, that, you know, every once in a while, and especially if you're doing content that you know really well or that you're not having to try on a whole lot, there's this very hypnotic thing that ends up happening. There's just this very, like, I end up my eyelids grow droopy. You know, and I start to nod off.
That's called pot.
Well, you're not wrong, but I think that something like this really helps, you know, break that, you know, look at your buffs, look at the ground, look at your buffs, look at the ground, look at look at your buffs, look at the hotbar, look at the ground. You know what I mean? Like, there's only 3 areas that your eyes are really paying attention to. And but this also, you know, there's another side to that where it is going to force your eyes to look at more of the screen, and I think that for a time it may make people less efficient with how they end up using you know, some of those job abilities based on how well they're doing now. So it gives you another thing that you have to pay attention to, but at the same time, you know, sort of like a limit break gauge where you just sort of have a sense of that more than you have to stare at it like your buff icons. I think that's what it's meant to do. So really interesting stuff there. You brought up shared role actions, but it's a little complicated to put all of the DPS under one category, isn't it? Because we have melee and ranged casters. We have melee and ranged and casters. How far? Yoshi-P answers. How far and how many of the roles will be unifying as a role is up to the balance. So it's not decided just yet. We do feel that putting physical melee and ranged and magical DPS under one role is fine at the moment, but we still haven't made our final decisions. Jeez. Goes on to follow up and say, so tanks are going to have shared tank actions. And I think this is where the idea of shared action, shared role actions becomes a little bit more clear. Yoshi-P answers yes. For the actions with effects like increases your physical resistance, we won't be stubborn to make a different action with similar effects for each job, and instead we'll standardize it into a shared action. With the open space that change creates, we'll make job-specific actions unique to the job to push forward the job identity and make this and and at the same time, make sure the overall number of actions won't be more than we have now. By maintaining the total number of actions we currently control, and at the same time leaving space for players to devise is important to prevent the game from breaking. You may receive the impression that these shared role actions, job-specific UIs, and job adjustments are going to make the game easy, but this is not the case. We are going out of our way to make it simple by getting rid of unnecessary elements so players can improve the party coordination and provide space to play even better than now. That way, players who have high-skilled players can probe into it even more. However, the gap between the top and the bottom won't be as extreme as the current situations, so that the ones who will open a gap with others will be the players higher up at the top. I think that this is just a fascinating direction for the development of 4.0, and I think that these are some of the most surprising statements that we've seen out of Yoshi-P or Square Enix in terms of the 4.0's development.
Well, and it's nice to see. I mean, the goal of most game developers is easy to learn, hard to master.
Yes.
And that's what that sounds like they're trying to push towards. This should be very visually, it should be very simple to pick up and understand, but to actually master it and push if you're a DPS, your DPS up to that top tier, there's room for you to expand and get really good.
Yeah. And the interviewer actually catches on to that and says it's true the gap between a hardcore black mage who always maintains his Enochian and a black mage who drops it and turns into a fireman has become too huge. And Yoshi responds, yes, with these changes, the gap between the casual players and the players at the middle should come closer to zero. On the other hand, the gap between a small portion of players and the players at the middle will start to widen, and that this is the space we want to leave for improvement in gameplay. That being said, these changes will not be big enough to dethrone the skilled players, so I think they'll continue to reign over at the very top. When we look at the server logs, we can tell that they are a few levels higher, and it amazes me that humans can come this far.
Wow.
The way that they handle instant decisions is great. Their thorough investigation for certain routes are perfect, and on top of that, when they are targeted by random mechanics or when their party members make a mistake, they cover and support them as if that movement was decided from the beginning. Their gameplay algorithm is well planned, where they even deliberately refresh buffs earlier to counter certain situations. And so there you go. Yoshi-P giving a little bit of love to the extremely skilled.
The thing I want most from the shared actions is having an actual decision-making process between these, because for basically 90% of the jobs, you have your 5 actions, and hopefully 4 of those are decent. What I want is like 6 or 8 different actions that are all viable.
Well, what is that? What change does that end up making? Exactly.
Well, just being able to change like what abilities you have based on encounters or whatever,
like situational stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Well, so, but then that means that they're designing a whole bunch more stuff. I mean, I get that addresses ability bloat a little bit, but you don't think that puts a little bit of extra work on the developers to create extra actions? It sounds like they want to pare a bunch of these down.
Did they say whether or not we'll be able to have all of the shared tank actions, for example?
I mean, yeah, it sounds like.
Oh, okay. I thought
all of those actions would be, like provoke wouldn't be, that would be like a shared tank action.
What I was pulling out is they don't want to have, defense plus 20% in 3 different fashions for tanks. There's just a shared tank defense buff.
Right, exactly. Like like Warriors 30% defensive up and Dark Knight's 30% defensive up. It's really the same thing, but they use 2 different names and they've got 2 different sets of graphics. If the plan is to give a tank a 30% defensive buff, then let's standardize that across all 3 sets of tanks and let them share the action. That way we can sort of make make the jobs stand out in different ways other than, oh, well, you get Sentinel and you get,
Dark skin?
Yeah, whatever it is.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, now you look at it and it says, okay, we have all these shared actions that all tanks will probably use. And then Warrior also has Berserk to buff up their attack.
Right.
They have things like that.
Oh, so we're going to be able to use all of the tank actions all at once?
I assume
Presumably,
so.
'cause
I assume it's not going to be like now where you only get like the little bar with like
that's what I
5
was
on
assuming
it.
that we would have like
I'm
that.
assuming the share tank actions will just be, those are actions that you can do.
I mean, I'm sure that they're.
okay.
I don't know. I'm sure that they're capped. Like you may have to select them, like you currently have to select your off skills right now. But
Right.
I don't know. They do not clear that up.
Okay.
And then they said it seems to be difficult for new players to learn Blood for Blood. After all melees use Blood for Blood, and if that's the case, we will make Blood for Blood job specific and add another action that increases your physical attack power and make that a shared role action. That way we can maintain the job identity and simplify it at the same time. But again, this is just a supposition. We may end up just making Blood for Blood a shared role action.
it is kind of weird that like every melee DPS has Lancer at 34.
Right.
Because everyone needs
At
Blood for
least.
Blood. You
Everyone
have to have
needs to have Blood for Blood, yeah.
And every tank has Gladiator at whatever level is provoked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think maybe there might be some concessions there, which I think are fine concessions to make. I think that all kind of comes along with intention and stuff like that. So I think that all of those changes are probably pretty okay. And we've also got some notes on adjustments to existing jobs. There's going to be some big changes on accuracy and parry. We heard a little bit about this at the Q&A session that Yoshi-P did at the North American FanFest. But he responds, including ideas like removing accuracy as a whole is still in the stage of consideration. Are we going to remove accuracy from healers, or are we going to remove it from everything? Or are we going to leave accuracy as a stat and add a high amount of accuracy on healer gear? Whichever way, there will be some sort of change. So it sounds like that this is going to be the same with parry as well. There's a question, what's the direction for the new actions for existing jobs? If you're talking about the current jobs, the job concept of Dragoon is to be more enjoyable as a Dragoon.
What? What does that mean?
I agree.
Paladins will become even more harder / solid and be able to protect their allies even further, and we want to push that straight forward. The theme of 4.0 is to make the jobs and classes share actions that have no problem being shared, and also have each job have a proper job identity by sharpening their job-specific actions.
Wait, go back. What does that mean? You're going to make Dragoon more Dragoon? That doesn't make any sense.
I think that just means that more job identity in general, like that a Dragoon is a Dragoon. It's not just a melee DPS.
Now, Dragoon pokes with his lance, has Blood for Blood, takes more damage, and definitely does not have a wyvern. That's what they meant.
I think. I obviously nobody really knows what that means, but I think that adding new UI elements, adding customized UI, you might. I think that he might be onto something. That may be a big element in making a job feel much more, have a little bit more job identity attached to it. I mean, this is something that we've talked about a bunch, where, it feels like every tank is just sort of like, a different skin on a tank, or that some DPS feel like, there's not a whole lot of difference between a bard and a machinist, and how they function. That is a pretty important thing. And the fact that they're thinking about how to increase, job identity, I think that that's great. That's a criticism that we've held for a long time. Even with all the changes, most jobs will functionally only end up with one more or one less job ability at level 70. So
excellent. Thank you.
They are very aware of ability bloat. So that's good. Very, very good.
Thank heaven.
They don't want to remove tank and DPS stance dancing, so don't think that that's going to be going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And finally, with this section, he says, I have to repeat myself again. What I talked about today are just examples. I don't mind players debating over what is said in this interview, but I'd like them to avoid discussing it in an assertive manner.
Is this to us? Is he talking to us right now?
I kind of feel like he is.
I think he's talking to us.
Well, let's just start talking it more passively and less assertively.
From my perspective, I can declare that I'm explaining it after telling them none of it is final. So even if misunderstandings take place at the moment, it won't affect the final implementations. But from the development team, the development team really worries and cares about those vague misinterpretations, no matter how hard they try not to care about it. So please remember, none of this is final. But I mean, I honestly didn't hear anything in there that raised my red flag. Most of everything that I heard in there outside of the jump potion,
yeah,
seems pretty on the nose,
and really insightful. Like understanding where your game is at, and not like SE. For as long as I've known them to be, SE has had their kind of like their heads always in the clouds, kind of where they don't really understand what people are saying about their games.
Right.
This shows a level of self-awareness I'm not used to seeing from them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. Nika, why don't you tell us about... well, actually, you know what? Before we get into raid content, because I definitely want you to read the raid content section, let's go to our phone lines and talk to Zero Ashinzari. What's going on, Zero? Thanks for calling Limit Break Radio.
Hey, guys. I've got two little ideas, and it relates to the jump potion. One, I don't want that thing to exist. I really, really don't. Right now, I play a ninja, and I sit at probably 30 skills on my hotbar, and I'm going to expect somebody who's never played this game, doesn't understand positionals, or even half the mechanics with that's a dive bomb, that's a stack, that's a runaway, to understand how to play their class even pathetically? No. The two ideas I have is they need to focus on not the jump potion so much, but how to restructure the mentor, recruiter friend, and level syncing system so that gives us as diehard fans of the game a reason to go back and help friends and new people into the game and get better at it to raise the skill level and attract more people into the game.
That's a great point, and this was something that was actually brought up during the Q&A. It was, I think, one of the last questions that was brought up during the Q&A. They had ended it, and then they were like, no, screw it, we got time for a couple more questions. And one of the questions was, is there any way that we could establish an open world level sync? Because when you're in a party with someone who is lower level, right now it's pretty much functionally going from fate to fate to fate, and then killing stuff in between while waiting for fates to repop. And because there's no overworld level sync, every time the fate finishes, you've got to drop out a party with that person if they want to be receiving XP for the stuff that they're killing. Mm-hmm. So it becomes this really sort of frustrating process of trying to play with someone who's lower level. Now, I understand that criticism, and I have long thought that a level sync system was probably superfluous to a game like this until that problem was very clearly laid out by that question. And I totally agree that if we want to try to fix the problem of people not being able to play with their friends that they've just attracted to this game, then let's talk about level sync instead of talking about the jump potion. And that's what sort of disappoints me, is because the jump potion is just such an easy cop-out. It's such an easy solution to a problem that has existed for a while, and that I think that Square Enix can do better than that. They've done better than that with other titles, with other MMOs in the past, and it doesn't have to go that way. Going the route of a jump potion is just so lazy.
And it really is, and the world level sync is a really exciting idea to me, because say if I recruited a friend and they joined in, I get to have that unique unique relationship with that friend and experience in the game. I also want the ability not only just to level sync, but see where their progress is in the main storyline, so I can know, okay, they're going to go to this quest, and this quest, and before they hit this dungeon, they've got this many quests. And if they do really intentionally get lost, I know where those quest markers are, because with that new recruit a friend option, you could conceivably go, bro, you need to go right here, you're golden.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing I would love to see too is from a bit of a lore perspective. I really do not want to. I've done a lot of work on my character. I don't want to go and make an alternate character. I would like that option too, as a world level sync, to go, you know what? Maybe I want to start the game over and witness those cutscenes again, knowing what I do know now, because I can rewatch any TV series I want. I can't really do that with Final Fantasy XIV at this time.
Right. Right.
The other idea that I had is, if, for an example, I'm not going to play probably any of the range classes. I like playing my ninja. I like playing my Dark Knight. But if I got a friend, I recruit a friend, and they say, hey, you know what? I'm really liking this Bard concept. What if, okay, I got a level 50 Bard. During the time that I'm a level 50 Bard myself, that experience that I get to have, and the fact that I raised up my level cap, I can give them special instructions. They get the ability to get more XP because I have Bard at 50 and they have that special student-teacher relationship.
Right.
So it gives the veteran players more of a reason to max out more of their classes.
Right, right. And, you know, something that you had brought up earlier, Dusty is taking issue with, that you can actually watch all of the cutscenes at the end, but there's stuff that you can't rewatch. You can rewatch all of the cutscenes, but dialogue before or after, that does not get replayed.
Yeah.
So
if you actually just rewatch through all that, it feels really disjointed.
It's very disjointed, extremely disjointed. There's a lot of necessary dialogue and expositional dialogue that happens in between those cutscenes. So
there's a lot of Hildebrand stuff that only takes place in the real world and not in cutscenes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
if you want to go to Hildebrand again, you're SOL.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, that's kind of a cop-out answer there, Dusty. And I agree with you. You know, like there should be some sort of function for that in the game. Thanks for the call, Zero. We appreciate you calling Limit Break Radio. Got any shout-outs before we let you go?
Just a shout out to the Nomad Moogles, and guys, keep being awesome.
Thanks, dude. It's always nice to hear from Zero, Ash, and Zari. If you want to call Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord if you want to be a caller to the show. Let Juxta know Kooky is taking the day off. We don't have Kooky answering our phones. Let Juxta know, and he will send you along, get you all connected to the show.
We miss Kooky.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
So, Nika, I would love you to take the next portion of the interview here.
Sure. All right. So, raid content. Excuse me, my throat is still recovering. So, question is, new raid content aimed towards the top players are planned for 4.0, but what do you think the new end content should be shaped like in 2017? Answer, at least something where players who want a challenge can say, this raid was also fun and challenging after the world first race is over. I know there are various opinions on the difficulty, but since it's entertainment, I think it's more important for players to be able to feel it was fun even though it was hard, or that was exciting with their friends when they accomplished their goals. I think we were able to land right on that spot with the creator.
You think that's accurate?
So far, yes.
So far for me, it has
been. I've cleared 9 and 10 and gotten, I don't know, a third of the way through 11 so far, I think.
All right.
And I'd say, yeah, so far.
Okay.
He says, I also know there are players who felt unsatisfied. Humans are strange creatures where they can sometimes feel happiness when they are given stress. The stronger that stress is, the happiness you gain after surpassing it becomes bigger. Knowing that, I understand the voices where they want it to be more difficult. I honestly think the difficulty of the creator is what suits this day and era, but I do think about trying to deliver something for those extreme masochists who aren't satisfied.
Jeez.
Wow.
I mean, that's what they should do. They should have like an easy difficulty, a normal raid difficulty, and then like an extremely sadistic difficulty.
An obscenely hard, right?
Yep. Also, the motivation after clearing the final floor is a consideration. I'd like to help players who want the quote-unquote sense of superiority they feel when they are the only ones who can challenge it.
Yes!
He's listening to you.
Exist.
That is, look, this is exactly what we've been talking about. The how do you properly show off the fact that you can beat the final floor of a raid? The best way to do that, the most efficient way to do that, the one that feels the best is gear.
Minions.
It's not a minion, it's not a mount, it's not a set of earrings, it's a piece of gear. And it's not always the weapon either. Like, they're really good about rewarding us with weapons, but the gear should also be a big part of this too. And the fact that they said that motivation to clear after the final floor, that's huge. Like, I think that's one of the biggest statements that I've heard from Yoshi-P, and one that gives me the most hope moving forward in 4.0.
It'll be a title.
Don't.
I mean,
no.
but you can see titles right on the character.
It's still, though, that's not good enough. They've done that before. They did that before with the Extreme Second Coil, and it didn't fucking work. The titles were clearly not enough to get it done. It's got to be something with substance.
And plus, you look at any streamer, they're all playing with the nameplates off, so all you see is letters. They don't see titles
That's
on
true
those,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Or even just nameplates completely turned off.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so let's look at the next question, which is, during the opening keynotes, you asked players if they wanted both the normal and Savage mode style for the new raids. What do you personally think about how it should be done? Answer: I basically think we should maintain that style. We are still discussing, but it was huge for players who didn't have much to do during the even patches, because even patches are mostly consisted of difficult content.
That's actually that is a criticism that we did have of A Realm Reborn, where it felt like every other patch felt like there was something for each camp of players to do.
It was extremely meaningful for casual players to be able to experience the scenario through the normal mode, and now we have more players who gain confidence there, who challenge extreme primals next. As a player value perspective, we shouldn't break the shape we have now. However, the hardcore players shouldn't get pulled along by that. I think it's okay for players with the elitist mindset that there is only content we can challenge. By having those players at the top, the players can see that from below and think, I want to go there as well, or look up at them and say, they're so cool. Like I said before, I want to take measures for this hierarchy.
Interesting.
And to be conscious of that, and also to be conscious of the fact that does not exist currently. Gives me, that honestly gives me so much hope, because the first step in addressing any problem is saying it out loud, acknowledging it.
Now, one thing that draws my attention here is where he says able to experience the normal mode, and now we have more players who gain confidence there who challenge extreme primals next. I would be are they seeing numbers that are suggesting more people are trying extreme primals this go around because of having story mode?
There might be something to that.
Yeah,
there might be something to that.
That line struck me.
I don't think so. Well, in my case, no, because in Realm Reborn, I did a few EX primals like Titan, Ifrit, and whatever. In Heaven's Ward, I tried doing Bismarck EX, and that's it.
Oh, that's because you're a fucking bad.
I guess so.
You are.
I'm just saying.
No, I'm not. There's no guessing about it. I'm telling you are.
Yeah.
Rude.
I know, right?
All right. The question is, so what's the direction of that challenge? And they say one that only the chosen can challenge. One isolated piece of content might be good.
Holy shit!
Hang on. I'm not sure if I understand what that means.
Hang on.
Okay, so you mean content that is above the Savage difficulty. Maybe content where it's all about being able to solve or not being able to solve it, but you only have the right to enter if you have cleared the 4th turn of Savage.
Wow!
Oh, shit.
We're talking about an endgame area that you can only access once you've cleared through Savage? Oh, man, is that a great carrot at the end of the stick. What a great motivator to get people to the other side of that shit.
That is the way to motivate.
That is
Absolutely.
yes, this is exactly what we've been talking about.
Oh my god.
I like the next one too.
Yeah, the next question answers the most exciting one I've heard yet.
So you need to clear Savage to challenge it. And he says, yes, but it's just an example. However, we won't compromise at all when we create it. So please don't complain even if it's too hard.
Good. Suck it, we wants. This is honestly, this is one of the most attractive things about FF11 was, being a pleb and seeing having other people who could go to places that you couldn't, right? Like having people in your link shell when you would see them in Sea or Sky, you'd be like, ooh, I can't wait to go there. That'll be so
Bring
fucking
someone up
cool.
on your friend list and they're in Altai-U and you're like, damn it, I can't go there.
Exactly. We need something like that.
Something on the level of C where it's like a whole bunch of like content and stuff, but it definitely
just
needs
a
to
zone.
Be something that because right now the only reason to raid is to get more gear to keep raiding, and if there's at least some kind of challenging content beyond the raiding, there is another reason to do raiding. There's another reason to get the gear because you need it for that content.
Yes, exactly.
Diadem should only be accessible after you clear the last tier.
No.
Of Savage. Well, no, that's what I mean is if there is crafting items that you can only get there from this place that you can only go after you've cleared the hard mode or the very highest tier of the Savage.
Yeah, I mean, something like that. I think what they're trying to imply is that it's going to be Eureka.
I don't think it'll be Eureka. No,
they said Eureka was going to be part of the relic. Possibly.
I do not think it'll be Eureka.
I don't know.
Based
on some of these other statements about Eureka in this interview.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it might change as we get further in. Right now, I would say no.
Okay.
So, let's hear about items and gear.
Job-specific gear for after you hit
anyone?
Hey, no one said anything. So, job-specific gear for after you hit level 70. There's also going to be more gear reveals to come in future live letters. So
that's good.
Not a big shocker there.
No.
There's going to be a big jump in eye level. Back in 2.0, we created an item level table up to item level 500, but we found a small failure in the calculations, so we fixed it. We'll have minor adjustments applied for 4.0 as well. There's definitely the job of seeing the numbers increase, but if the numbers inflate too much, you'll be turned off. So we're looking for a common ground.
Yeah, at some point it becomes fucking meaningless to just watch that number arbitrarily rise. So yeah, I think that's probably a good thing to think about.
Do you think we haven't already reached that point where it feels meaningless to see it keep going up?
No, once you get
at 275, you don't think we've already kind of reached that point?
Right, yeah.
Well, when you get to have 1 million HP is, I think, the breaking point.
So they've had lots of talk about memory and how it's managed.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussions about like the PlayStation 3, some of the memory management that's going on client side, and I mean this in a roundabout way sort of related back to the inventory increase and why that's a difficult thing to just kind of do whenever you want to. One of the things that they said is that when a player enters an instance, all the data's got to go into the instance with you. So that means every item that you're carrying also has to be, checksummed on the server. And, that can be a kind of a time-consuming process, and that they have to increase the architecture and make the architecture better to be able to make something like an inventory increase even possible and not be too much of a load on the servers. And then went on to say that memory is not the primary reason that they're dropping the PS3
I don't
support.
believe that for a second.
Well, no,
no way.
They said that the reason we decided to end the PS3 support is a sum up of all debating over precise matters, widening range of debugs, the development kit is aging, hardware crashes, and overall player base moving forward. That's why we announced it. So I guarantee you that memory is a bit of a limiting factor there, but it's not the primary reason that they chose to end support for the PS3. I mean, you've got to remember that consoles these days, porting to a console between a PC and a console, it doesn't look that drastically different. A lot of these dev kits really very closely mirror what you're going to be working with to develop for the PC. Not so in the last generation of console. Not so for the Xbox 360 and for the PS3. So that's another consideration too. Like there must have been just an obnoxious amount of bugs that they would have to swat down for.
Oh yeah. So moving on to the Forbidden Land of Eureka. Please tell us a little about the Forbidden Land of Eureka. It's still vague, but I would like to know the visual concept and the role this area will be taking. During the keynotes, you said we'll be able to enhance our weapons, but are there any other roles? And they replied, basically, if we explain FF14 as a theme park like I usually do, I think Eureka will not be a place everyone will go to. Just like the haunted house in a real-life theme park, some people never enter those places. We hear opinions like, why would you go out of your way to get scared? In real life, those confident men immoderately ask women to enter the haunted house when they are at a theme park. But from a woman's perspective, there are definitely people who are like, huh? Why would I? Or are you stupid? You want to act tough? I don't want to. What?
What?
Nika, I'm going to ask you about this because you don't like to be scared, and so does this analogy hold up?
I mean,
I don't like
sort of, but it's like I don't know. Everybody has their own distinct like.
It's getting a little
feeling?
stereotypical in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
Smells like sexism.
and actually, the translator notes this is actually what he said. It's not made up. All right, Yoshi. Anyway,
Interesting.
he continues on. Eureka is content like the example I gave you. Those who want to go are free to go, but be wanted to warn you that it won't be fitting for some people. I'm sure people in free companies have different likes and dislikes, and even those who are eternal bond partners need to be careful. Everybody doesn't go to haunted houses, but those who love that thrill will continue to attend, and that's the type of content we would like Eureka to be.
So basically, if you are okay with standing around for 75 hours waiting for a pop, go. If you are not that kind of person, fuck off.
Well, I mean, I like the idea that, and the statement that, you know, if we explain FF14 as a theme park, Eureka will be a place that not everyone will go to. That
Will
part
want to go to.
will want to go. Well, but that part of the analogy says that, or is what I was sort of basing on. You know, it could be access to Eureka, you know, through Savage. That's sort of what I was
Sure, but I mean, he also
pinning
says
that
that
on.
people who want to go will be free to do so.
Right, yeah.
So I don't think so. That said, I could see it being a more traditional MMO type area where, like Nika says, there are pop NMs that take a while. There's those elements that
that's
some
what-
people don't like.
I mean, that's exactly what it screams to me, is that it's like some people who really want this, and like, he did mention, you know, like 72-hour pop type of things, and I feel like that's exactly what he's talking about. There are people who want that back. There are a lot of people that don't.
There's more to this
They
thought.
continue on. We don't have places like that in the current FF14, do we? And he says, not up to this point. The Zodiac and Anima Weapon Quest was a little like that, where we had lines connecting each of the content inside. FF14 Land, he describes it as Disneyland, but we're sure everyone is bored going to old areas. We as devs were also coming to a limit with ideas for those quests, and if that's the case, we might as well make an area dedicated for that, which was our first vague motivation/reason to start making it. There are also staff members who want to implement content from the first generation of MMORPGs, where players will say, the mob still hasn't popped yet, stop screwing with us, or we finally beat it but it didn't drop anything again, damn it. And we match them up with this content. It's a playground for level 70 and beyond, so it's still an idea floating in the air, but the lore behind Eureka in the original FF3 is a land where powerful weapons, armor, and magic is sealed, so we want to make it where your hard work and time invested might end up being a waste, but instead have the chance to get a great reward. Oh my god, it is Relic, but the old school Relic.
Yeah.
It's olden days Relic.
Yeah, baby. I like this idea. I really do like this idea because, you know, this... I think that it's true that, like, when we went through 2.0, there were so many more Zodiac weapons. I mean, it was such a normal thing to see everyone with a Zodiac.
Right.
Now, in Anima, I mean, you see people at various stages of it.
Yeah.
I think at a lot more regularity. And there are some people who just are like, nah, they stalled out on it, and it's not that big of a deal for them. I think that that's very insightful to say, if we're running out of places to send players that are engaging or interesting in the world, why not just make a place for it in the next expansion, send them there, and then build on top of it?
Yeah.
I think that that's really smart. I think it's really smart.
They continue on to ask, will the monsters that only pop once every 72 hours show up there? And they reply, that was one of the examples I gave today, but I still don't know how it will turn out. If we think about the current era we are in, I think 72 hours is going a little too far.
I think that this would need to come along with a claim system, too. Oh, my God, if it could come along with the claims, please.
The 72-hour respawn has a nostalgic ring to it. We had a lot of those things in FF11, didn't we? And he says, yes, we'd like to bring back some of those, but we have no intention of bringing them all back.
Aww.
If we did bring it all back, then it would be like, why not just play FF11? And there are lots of players who are playing FF14 because the game isn't like that. And that's fair.
Yeah, that is fair.
Is Eureka an extension of the Diadem and Diadem 2 planned for 3.5?
I thought this was a great question because the first thing that I think of is like, oh yeah, this is totally, they're just building on Diadem.
It's extremely different. Of course, we are going to balance Eureka based on the feedback we got for Diadem, but the starting point itself is very different from the planning stages. The second exploratory missions planned for patch 3.5 will include a raid that can only be cleared by a team of 4 parties, so it will provide a totally different type of gameplay.
What? Wait, this is... Wait,
He's dropping bombs in his interview.
He is! Like, I told you guys that this is one of the most hype interviews I've ever fucking read.
This is better than FanFest.
I was reading this last night, and my jaw was on the floor when I was reading some of this stuff. This was one of them. That the second exploratory missions planned for patch 3.5 will include a raid that can only be cleared by a team of 4 parties. 4 parties.
32-man raid?
4-party alliance. That's wow. That's awesome. Now I hope he's saying raid in the sense of like the way that other raids are structured, where there's some kind of instance on top of it, on top of what other the free world stuff that you're going to be doing. That I'm sure is going to be a part of Diadem 2. I don't know, man. This just sets my speculation drives into overdrive.
Bring on patch 3.5.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Are the rewards going to be ethereal gear like last time? And they say, we're right in the middle of the final adjustments. The content is a little different to what we have in FF14 now, so we're having a hard time deciding the rewards. By looking at the reactions to this content, note Diadem, Eureka will be even more buffed up. We'd like to continue providing new values and challenges.
Cool.
In a previous interview, you mentioned how you wanted to make changes to content such as the animal weapon quest, which is for players who aren't really into endgame content. And he replied, that is exactly what we want you to expect Eureka to be like. I think we'll have armor this time, but you'll probably die if you do it all.
Okay.
What?
Bring it on. No, the fact that armor specifically is included in this statement is very...
You're going to change the gameplay entirely by providing a dedicated area for that content? And he says, well, yes, but like I've said before, we aren't going to change the core game design of FF14. Since we have a game design that matches with the current era, there are cases where we change the shape of old content into what follows the flow/trend today, but we definitely won't go back to how it was like in the old days. There are times when what was nice in the past becomes a trend again, but it's never in the form of what it was like in the past. We have to admit our age exists thanks to the fun experience we had in the past, and I'm not denying the past in any way. So we are thinking about trying to bring back that essence in some way, shape, or form into our gameplay. For the armor, we have a rough idea and plan in our heads, like maybe it's better for players to register a certain design they like onto the armor and enhance that. We'll have some players who buff up the reindeer-looking armor and some who register the gear that they start the game in. There will be opinions like just put glamour over it, but there will also be those who care about that specific armor being strong, so it's not an easy decision.
Dude, this is addressing at least like 80% of the criticisms that I've had about this game in the last year. This is amazing. I mean, they're trying to basically what that statement says is we understand that gear has in a lot of ways lost its value, and we want to try to find ways to revalue it. And I think that has been one of the things that we've been talking about in terms of sentiment for almost a year now. That it's been there was a problem going back to 2.0. It just took us till 2.4 to the end of 2.55 to figure that out. Now, I mean, the problem has been staring us in the face the entirety of 3.0. We've called it out so many times, and this says they get it.
Yeah, we hear, and it goes back to what, like, early on in the 3.x cycle, where we address, like, listen, the changes you guys need to make, you can't do now. It's going to be at the next expansion. And we've just kind of had to sit here with our fingers crossed that they're hearing that and that they understand that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't confirm it until now.
I mean, like, this is a mind-blowing interview. Again,
that whole Eureka section was just holy shit.
I'm so stoked. Again, this is we're talking about the Game Watch interview that Yoshi-P did with them just following the North American FanFest. This was translated and posted to Reddit. If you want to check out a link, one has been provided by Juxta in the chat room. We'll also have a link to it at our website, limitbreakradio.com, when this show comes out on Tuesday. I mean, yeah, just so many exciting statements in here from, the possibility that there's going to be an event or a zone or something that we can go to after the fourth section of a raid to reward us for clearing the raid. All of the announcements surrounding Eureka. I think that Square Enix is aware of a lot of these problems that we've addressed. And again, we've been saying for a long time, like, you can't change horses in the middle of a race. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, in the middle of 3.4, go, oh, well, this ain't working, we got to change this. There's only so much that you can do. The real opportunity to introduce change is at 4.0. And look at how much they're talking about. Look at how much is already in the planning stages. And what, say what you will about Yoshi-P or the way that he develops his games. The way that he markets stuff, he doesn't start talking about it until it is definitely going to happen. I mean, there are very few things where Yoshi-P keeps us hanging on and keeps us waiting for long tracks of time. Most of the stuff that he ends up talking about in interviews like this end up panning out in some way, shape, or form. And so this gives me a lot of hope as to what we're going to end up seeing in the 4.0 expansion. I think that Stormblood is going to do a lot of really positive things for this game and the way that people are engaged by the content that it's presenting.
You know what it is? It's super vindicating. We have been very critical of this game over the 3.x patch cycle. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. And we listen to people all the time say things like, if you don't like the game, why don't you just leave?
Yep.
And this interview, this is why, because our concerns are being addressed. And it's only because we're vocal about it.
Yes. And I mean, look, we can't take all the credit for this.
Hell no. We're going to, but
these are things that have been identified by the community for a long time. And we're not alone in this point of view. Like, there are plenty of people who share this point of view and have been a bit frustrated with FF14. Dude, I've made so many concessions for this game in the years that I've played it. I've been a fan since 1.0, but I also learned something important during the 1.0 days, that holding back your criticism does nothing to help move the conversation forward. Square Enix is operating off of a lot of fan feedback. They watch the forums. They're paying attention to their community. And if that's the case, then we need to talk to them in the ways that we, and in what we really feel. Like, making excuses for them or trying to be, a 3-hour-long weekly advertisement for FF14 does nothing for anybody. I mean, maybe it'll attract a couple of people to the game. Certainly, when we were doing something close to that for FF11, we brought some people to FF11, but I don't think that it did anything for us to bring us any kind of credibility or bring us any kind of anything. Our audience was objectively smaller back in the 11 days. We didn't bring as much attention to serious and important topics. We would hold back jokes sometimes because we would be afraid of offending the people that we did get. That just doesn't happen with this version of the show. And I think that I think everyone's better for it. I think the community is better for it. I think the devs are better for it because they're receiving honest and open feedback and criticism. criticism, and we provide you guys a platform to be able to express your opinions. You get to jump on with us, and you get to say, hey, I think this is crap, or I think that this is a great idea. And we provide you that platform every single week. And again, if you want to reach out and you want to express your opinions, Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. We have a really active and awesome community here. I've always maintained that Final Fantasy XIV players are the best MMO players to play with. They really are the best, and they're the best audience to have on the internet. But there are problems. There are ways that this game falls short and falls flat, and if you don't address it, and if you don't address it openly, then I think automatically there are players who will sniff that out, and your credibility takes a hit.
Well, and to address the incoming comments, because I know we're going to see them. Oh my God, now they're back on board. They're flip flopping again. Yeah, that's how this works. When SE does smart, self-aware things, we say nice things. When they do dumb shit, we say mean things. And that's how this works.
And look, and again, this is all speculation. You know, the content that we get when 4.0 is delivered could be a lot different from what we're theorizing and a lot different from what is laid out here. There's a lot of points for miscommunication. There's translation that's going on. We're reading excerpts of the interview that, we understood to the best of our knowledge. Like, we're making edits. We couldn't sit here and read through every single part of this Q&A. We would be here for 7 hours. Okay, so it's definitely going to be different, and I think that you have to go off the information that you're provided and then judge the content based on when you get it, not before you get it. And certainly if someone's saying the right stuff, if someone is indicating that, the moves are going in the right direction, why would you just continue to abjectly criticize that? Just criticism for criticism's sake does nothing.
Yeah. And
it does fucking nothing.
And when they come out and they acknowledge some of the concerns that we've been preaching for 6 months, yeah, we're going to give them credit for that, because it's nice to actually hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Juxta, there's just a little bit here towards the end of
we knew this part would be fun for you.
Yeah, you want to go ahead and stumble bum through those?
Sure.
Okay.
Starting with housing in Alamigo.
Because it's so important.
Of course.
We gave them the important task.
The delusion I had was, since we're joining the Alamigo resistance, I thought we were going to live together with them in barracks and have a tough experience at first and gradually work our way to improve our environment. I was imagining some sort of, quote, live content, but that doesn't seem anything like that. Answer is, if the new housing area consisted of barracks, nobody would think about buying a house.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's correct.
That is absolutely true.
It's normal to try to get the most ideal house in a game. I don't think there are players who think, quote, I'm going to throw away my resort in Limsa and live in a barrack. Whichever way, even if the new housing area is located in Ishgard or Alamigo, I want players to feel the achievement of wow.
He did so well.
We're able to build houses here because of me.
I don't ever want Juxta to be able to feel like that.
Because of me. Another question we have, possibility of aerial combat. Moving to Alamigo reminded me of the lore.
I definitely want to fight the Little Mermaid. Can we make that happen?
What?
Aerial combat?
Come
on!
Oh, no.
Are you serious? Oh, you didn't... Oh, that one should have smacked you in the forehead. Oh, you dumb dingus.
Wow. Moving to Alamigo reminded me of the lore, including a regiment of Griffin-backed soldiers. This is just my imagination, but are you going to challenge creating content where we ride griffins and fight in the air? He says, like I've said in the past, if we're going to have dogfights in the sky, we would like to make a particular content dedicated for that. For example, fighting against a huge boss like Alexander and carrying bombs on our flying mounts and dropping them.
That'd be sweet.
If we don't have content and stage effects specifically for that, it will definitely not be fun to play. If we can do that, it'll be fun.
Is he talking about calling in UAV drone strikes? Like, is that they're going to make that element? They're just going to rip it straight out of Call of Duty?
But we don't have any plans at the moment.
Okay, that's good.
Fail. Regarding clear rates of recent Alexander as compared to coils.
This might be interesting.
High-end content you spent months developing just got cleared in 2 days, huh? I have a strong memory of nobody being able to beat the 5th floor of Binding Coil for Bahamut after a while after it was released, and that left a pretty strong impression. But it seems we're in a different era now. Yoshi responds, that was when the tournament involving the competition for Final Fantasy XIV raids was born into this world. After that, the Warriors of Light went through training and buffed up for every match and jumped over traps and mechanics.
This section would be a lot better if Juxta was muted. Also hashtag ban Scoro.
Well, Lasat, I don't disagree with you, but he would have to shout the whole time, and that
I can shout.
It makes my neighbors really annoyed.
Someone else can just take this section. He doesn't rate anyway.
You don't read.
Just finish it.
I think the difference between now and then is simply the experience. You might consider it being only 2 days, but 2 days is 48 hours. If you play for 3 hours every day and all you do is challenge the raids in that time, that's a total of 16 days. If players like Nakamura, Thancred's VA, and myself assume it's 48 hours and spend 2 hours per day, we'd say, there's no way this is 2 days. The top teams have everything ready beforehand. The top teams lower than their item levels and challenge Midas as a method of training before entering patch 3.4. They have team members that are a team of members that has collected materials, members who have collected their tier 5 materia, and members who have created and provided the new craftable gear right after the patch was released. Those players split and assign their roles and do their best to make their free company the #1 in the world. It's not just the raid team who are great, and those 48 hours are a concentration of everyone who put in their work.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Sounds just like pro gamers.
Yeah, I mean, is he just saying that the Raiders now are just more prepared and dedicated? Is that what
I'm getting out of it?
Yeah,
and
that's
also what I get out of that is it sounds like they're not really our concern. That's what that sounds like to me.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know.
He says, it's a world with first teams, second teams, and third teams. So, quote, 2 days may sound easy on paper, but I totally think that's not the case. Members from the dev team were thinking if it's those players, it'll take around 2 days.
So it sounds like that's what they were expecting. Okay. All right, fine.
All right, so we got A11, floor 3, seen as difficult. Question is, I frequently witness accidents on that floor. Note the 3 consecutive missiles on the DPS with no heals or the clockwise lasers. I imagined that you deliberately made the Savage mode easier so they could get out of there earlier and gave the normal mode a bit more of a challenge instead.
What?
Yoshi says that's not the case. The devs from the battle system and the monster team are skilled players as well, so that when they balance and adjust content with me, sometimes we forget about the average player. When we test AoEs that target everyone, we test it without any discussions on where to move to avoid them. We do have occasions where there are accidents, but it's not a level of not being able to clear the content. But on the 3rd floor, as you gave an example, there are those players who don't like the spread type mechanic. Especially AoEs that have a wide range and are easy to overlap each other. They run towards the same direction, and he says, we tend to think that if you see the AoE, there should be no trouble dodging it, and we categorize it as an easy mechanic. But Floor 3 taught us a lesson, and we understood that that was a wrong way to interpret it. We are sorry about Floor 3, A11 normal. It is our mistake for tuning it. Floor 3 is a little difficult.
It is weird. It is the only one that you still see people wiping on.
Yeah.
Yep, every time I do normal, I wipe at least one.
People just don't get just dodge propeller wind. All you have to do is dodge propeller wind, and you will win that fight.
It comes at a weird interval, especially if you get the 2 nodes that it drops. If it drops it without outside of your range of vision, or if it's far off, it's just not the best visual identifier to know, oh, fuck, propeller wind's coming up really quickly.
It's an awkward segment.
It is. It definitely is awkward, and it takes timing, but it's not impossible. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. So let's talk about decreased difficulty aiding in increased attendance with raiding. Nika, I feel like this would be an appropriate segment for you to take.
Sure. So the question is, I don't know, are the total number of players putting all their time and effort into challenging raids decreasing? The answer is maybe it's because there are less opportunities to experience the fun of raiding. In Japan, the raiding culture only began with FF14, and there aren't many titles where it's possible to experience endgame raids. Note, WoW and Rift are not localized in Japan, so it's uneasy.
So what they're saying is that this is sort of the standard bearer for endgame MMOs in Japan. I mean, I guess
for the raid style.
Well, for the raid scene, because I mean, yeah, there are obviously.
Please put this donation towards Hooked on Phonics for Juxta.
Hooked on Monkey Phonics?
We'll do our best. We'll get him some Muzzy tapes.
Oh my God! How do you remember that?
I don't know. It just came out of nowhere. Came out of nowhere. It'll help you do language good.
I speak goodly anyway.
Yeah. No. I mean, I guess it never occurred to me that MMOs in Japan on a regular rate would not get enough traction to be able to have a community to support an endgame raiding scene.
That's because they get shut down 24 hours after launch over there.
Okay. Well,
but I mean, FF11 had endgame over there. Like, they had people that were trying to beat the hardest bosses.
Well, yeah, but if you have a culture that doesn't really have all that much context for WoW, like WoW wasn't a cultural phenomenon over there like it was here, then that push into that style of online gaming had to come from other places. And so Square Enix adopting it and putting it out as their main format for their MMO, that might be a bigger adjustment for Japanese audiences than we really realize. I guess it wasn't until the statement that didn't really even occur to me. So
Wait, so was the complaint about rating being too hard a Japanese complaint? We always just assumed it was us.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Because we know in Japan people like to help each other a lot more than they do here. So.
Well, and I think in Japan there was higher motivation rates, like there were higher motivation levels for them, and this is a sentiment, like I have no data to back this up, but it seemed like much more of a priority to get into and to create a vibrant raiding scene than in North America. I mean, we had Arthur's come on and tell us as much. In the first couple of 3.x patches, that the attitude surrounding raiding was far different in Japan than it was in North America, and the willingness to help other players or get new players into the raiding scene was increased in Japan as opposed to in North America. And this might be one of those fundamental reasons why, and I guess it just never really occurred to me.
No, I got it. The reason why JP players are bad is because they don't have a JP button anymore.
Oh, you know what? You're right. You're right.
All right. So the next question is, did lowering the difficulty of the creator change the number of players entering Savage dramatically?
This is a question that I was very curious about, too.
Yes. They said the increase is obvious. People participate because they can clear the content, and also when they might be able to clear it. So the current difficulty might be where it should be. In our current world, I think it's normal for people to want results for the amount of time and work they invested. Not gaining anything after spending 12 weeks, but our practice won't betray us, might be good for those with a fighting spirit, but the majority of people cannot accept that. The first 2 floors of the creator are especially easy this time, so I think we're back to the routine from the old Binding Coil days, where you clear the first and second floor on Tuesday JP time, and then you go to practice the last 2 floors. It told us devs a lesson as well. Yeah, they're not wrong.
Interesting.
One of the concerns I have is the very top of the player hierarchy. The part where you are done after getting your weapon by doing 8 laps of the 4th floor is something where we need to improve and think of something new. We had a lot of feedback demanding a different scenario for the normal and hard mode, but after all these people clearing the creator, we don't hear that opinion as much anymore. We did hear the story for Alexander was a little plain compared to the Binding Coil Bahamut, but we also heard voices from players that they were satisfied with the raid scenario after we released Creator. So rather than changing the story for the 2 difficulties, we hope to provide a treat/reward for those who cleared the hard mode in a different shape. Note, he doesn't say Savage or Type 0 for some reason, because Type 0 is the name for JP Savage. He said the hard mode in a different shape.
So again, this is just, this is something else that we've talked about, having an additional reward that exists after you end up clearing and getting all of your gear. What is to stop somebody from just ending their sub after they've done their 8 laps of the creator and got all the gear, got their weapon? What keeps them there? What keeps them continuing to play and continuing to log in? And I think that that's an important question to ask. We've been asking it. We've even put forth suggestions of what you could do to be able to keep players in the mix there. But again, the fact that Square Enix is coming out and saying, like, look, we're aware of this problem. This is a problem. I mean, it does. Ascali, when you said that it's vindicating, like it's validating to know that some of these issues that we've been talking about for months, and quite frankly receiving flack for talking about for months, is a problem that is not just recognized, but that it's actually being actively developed around these ideas. That's hugely vindicating.
It's so nice to hear from them, because at some point after you talk about it for so long, you get flack for it, and SE never says anything. You start to wonder, like, on the smallest level, maybe it is us. Yeah. Maybe we're just the ones who are pissed off.
Yeah, maybe I'm the asshole. But
well, you are, but...
We are, but...
Yeah.
We're also right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So on eliminating bonus attribute points, the question was, aren't you going to get rid of the bonus attribute points either? The answer, I think we'll abolish the system where you use attribute points on certain parameters. Especially the new players tend to never use those points on anything we thought. As expected, this is bad. None of them use the bonus attribute points. Answer, your level goes up quickly nowadays, and it's hard to notice the difference. That means that they are playing with all those 30 points piled up for nothing. He says, yeah. Most of the recent games don't make you design your parameters as you please, unless there's a huge system dedicated for that, like Dark Souls. That's the reason why new players don't have the habit of using their attribute points. I just thought that was really funny.
And even for the players who do use them, it's like, okay, I dumped everything in strength, and I'm never going to think about it again.
Right.
Yeah,
it's so pointless.
There's no mechanical gameplay there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that gets us mostly to the end of that huge Game Watch interview with Yoshi-P. Again, we've linked that several times in the chat if you want to check it out. Definitely a lot more there than we covered. I mean, it's like there's 3 parts of it, and I would say that each part is easily 4 or 5 pages long. So there's a lot to sift through. This was just the most interesting stuff to us. If you want a link to that, again, in our chat room right now or over at our website, limitbreakradio.com. So let's talk about the other interview that happened. Famitsu sat down with Yoshi-P following the North American FanFest. And again, like I said, there was a lot of overlap in information. And I tried to, we tried to pull out the stuff that maybe wasn't touched on or was touched on in less detail in the Game Watch interview. So the FanFest presentation, was it enough information? The trailer does feel lengthy, and Yoshi-P responds that it's about 2 minutes, and that this doesn't even include a third of the entire video. We wanted to make a video that will give excitement to players, like the end of an era trailer. And Yoshi-P had kind of drawn this comparison before, but I kind of wanted to highlight it again, that the full scale of the Stormblood trailer is going to be on par with something like End of an Era. But because of that, we could only put out the first part of the video. It's completely my fault. Yoshi-P laughs. Afterwards, I thought to myself that I should have thought about the shorter version a bit more. So does the final version include the main theme of the expansion, which this never got touched on in the Game Watch interview? I think that this is an important note to mention. The Heaven's Word trailer didn't have it, so it will probably be a different piece. So what he's saying there is that the time when they released the Heavensward trailer, they did not have the final version of the theme that was done by Susan Calloway. They used I believe it's just called Dragon Song.
No, Dragon Song is Susan Calloway.
Which they used.
You're gonna make me look it up.
It was another vocal track, but one that
I don't remember what it's called. I have it on my orchestrion.
It's very operatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a do 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 do.
Right. So Yoshi-P saying that the final version of the trailer probably will have the theme. Although I do have to, I do have to point out the slight difference. You know, like when they did the presentation in 2014, they went out of their way to say that the next title theme will be composed by Nobuo Uematsu and will feature Susan Calloway. They did not have that announcement this time. So we don't know what the final composition will end up being. Hopefully it'll end up featuring a friend of the show, Susan Calloway, but no confirmation there in this interview. So another question there. What were your thoughts on seeing Ozma for the first time? Yoshi-P responds, I really like the idea. The only thing I told him was it's fine for the field to change, but be sure to keep the HP of the boss when the players come back. If the boss's HP is at full health when they come back, it would feel as if you were fighting a different boss. If you don't make it so that the battle continues after returning from the swallowed state, it wouldn't make much for a fun game experience. And I think that again, it's one of those very small details that I agree with that.
Good insight.
Yeah, I appreciate really that's something that occurred to him. Like when he looks at the Ozma fight, like what occurs to him is, that looks great, but make sure his HP is the same when you come back. Like really, that's what came to mind for you?
It's a good thing it did.
It is good, but it's just
it does. It does seem like a very granular thing to sort of like, that's your big reaction, but okay. The interviewer asks, this is only my speculation, but I think that the woman in the trailer is Yida. Is it okay to think that Yida and Papalymo will have a big role in the expansion? Yoshi-P responds, without revealing specific names, I can say that important characters of the Scions will have important roles in the scenario. The next patch will have some information on who the woman in the trailer is. Be sure to make a lot of speculation. So, once again, confirming that we will know the identity of the woman in red as of 3.5.
Well, it says it will give clues and continue to speculate, please. I don't think that is any confirmation.
No, I think in the course of either 3.5 or 3.55, but clearly before the expansion, we will know who she is.
Yeah,
I think
we will have a good idea who she is, but I don't think it will be something that is spilled out in confirmation.
All right,
it could serve as that bridge.
Definitely could. Yeah. So when
I like this next one.
There were questions on how to make FF14 feel more fantasy-like. Yoshi-P says that when he took on the project of FF14, I asked the staff why the world doesn't feel fantasy-like, and their answer was that there was a country called Ishgard that was supposed to be released with the game, but in the end, they didn't make it in time to release it. Not only that, but it was also explained to me that Ishgard had quite an easy-to-comprehend setting and that it involved dragons and knights. You've got to be kidding me, I thought to myself. Why are you making something so important if you can't put it out in time? So opening the gates of Ishgard and letting players in became one of our biggest goals.
That's funny.
And the result of that was that we prepared ourselves and decided on plot points and being in Ishgard right from the start. On the other hand, a theme like the ones for Stormblood, we're having aggressors and the controlled and recapturing of land is something that Japanese players aren't too familiar with. So again, we get a reiteration that the themes surrounding Stormblood may not have been something that 100% hit home with a Japanese audience. Additional conversations on the speculation on the woman in red's job affiliation. The equipment the Warrior of Light was using, that's the monk-specific gear, yes. And for the woman, have no idea. There's a laugh after that. But people whose main job is monk would surely want to fight in that. The image of her in the trailer is that she fights with one style of martial arts. But in the end, it turns out that she is a dancer. And Yoshi-P responds, well, there are people that speculate that. It's very strange that those opinions come mostly from Japan.
I don't know why they keep thinking that. There are so many people in America that believe she's a dancer.
Yeah, everyone over here thought it was dancer.
Yep. I think I honestly do. I mean, I think we may be working our way towards dancer. I mean, if you look back at that trailer and the way that it's edited, I mean, there does seem to be a lot of close-ups of the woman in red, as opposed to a bit more distanced shots of the Warrior of Light. So it kind of gives you this impression that you're getting a full feel of what's happening during the fight, when really you're getting a very narrow view of what the woman in red is doing and how she's effectively fighting, and what the Warrior of Light is doing. There's the little bit at the beginning where you both see them coming head to head, but look very, very closely at some of the edits, and I think that you'll pick up on what I'm talking about. So there's probably going to be seeing some new primals with the addition of Beastmen, and Yoshi-P says that this time there will be a different twist. The reason that the Asians manipulated the Beastmen is to manipulate domestic politics of the three cities, so when they go to different areas, they take different approaches. In the case of Ishgard, they didn't manipulate the Beastmen, but rather put Thoradin and the Dragon Eye in the center of their attention, so that they succeeded in making a plan, or making a primal with a different concept. They will take different approaches. Their plan is to dry out the aether of the land, distort the balance, and unite the world, the worlds to begin with. Therefore, primals are only one method that they use. The way of thinking of the Black Asian and the White Asian is also a little bit different. So the story development will be different from what we've seen until now. I think that's great. I think that we're going to start moving away from Asians are just this kind of big, bad, nebulous badness that exists out in Eorzea, and instead actually understand some of their motivations a little bit more. That's what I would like. I would like to understand what the machinations of the Asians are, as opposed to just be, given very vague cutscenes, between someone like, what's his name?
Elidibus?
Yeah, Elidibus, and who's the Scion? I can't think of his name right now. Urianger, thank you.
Uri Grinder?
Yeah. And there's a lot more in here too. They get into some more changes, but this is really, we've heard a lot of these. Like, we've heard a lot of the answers to these in the Game Watch interview, and there's so much here that if you really are curious, head on over to Gamerscape. Gamerscape put up the translated version of this article. It's fascinating, guys. Definitely give it a read. But I also highly recommend that Game Watch interview. The Game Watch interview, I mean, really blew me away on a level that I was not expecting. Like, I did not expect going into reading in these interviews that I would be as hyped on the other side as I was. I mean, I'm hugely hyped for the direction that this game seems to be taking with the 4.0 expansion, and I think that it's smart. I mean, they do have a little bit in there to try to entice new players in, but what we've said for a long time is that this needs to be an expansion that's focused on retaining veteran players, and I think that they've got a couple of plans in mind to be able to do that. Smart job, Square Enix. Now, whether it will materialize and be as satisfying on delivery of the content, that has yet to be determined. But hopefully they'll get it right. I mean, this seems to deviate a lot from what we heard about going into 3.0.
Can I just read one more piece of an answer that I think, again, just goes so much to highlight how like self-aware they are.
Sure.
No.
They're talking about Eureka versus Diadem again, and the idea of adding in gear that you just buff up over time that you like.
Sure.
And they suggest if you do that, it will change gear progression altogether. And Yoshi replies, it is the second expansion pack, and if we were to do the same thing all over again, a lot of people would get tired of it.
Yep.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Because we have said on multiple occasions and in green room videos, I can't do another expansion of the same thing.
Yeah,
I can't do another 3.0.
But you can't totally deviate from the pattern, too, because there's an expectation there.
Right.
There's an expectation of the audience that, there should be gameplay that we already recognize. Don't take away the game that I the parts that I like, but like let's try
Mix
to
it up.
Try to vary, but put some variation on it. And again, look, Deep Dungeon was a sort of successful venture into that realm. Diadem less successful, but we'll see what's going to go down with Diadem 2. This interview gave me a lot more hope for Diadem 2 than I was prepared to walk out with. And all of that together, all of that combined with some of these statements saying that there are devs even internally that are like, let's make this a little bit old school. Let's try to find a function of this game where we can make it feel like an older MMO. I think that that's incredibly smart. That speaks to retaining the veteran player base, and I think that Square Enix is making some very, very smart moves here.
Couldn't agree more. It's just like, I was not expecting to come out of LBR today this hype for Stormblood.
Yeah. I
thought the next time I would like the hype level would go way up would be JP FanFest. I was not thinking a random Sunday in November.
Right. I mean, it's cool. I dig it. I like a lot of the proposed changes, right down to the UI changes. I think that those sound like a really smart idea. And I mean, normally I can't be bothered with shit like that. I mean, yeah, it's a quality of life stuff, but it's not something that you get really excited about. And
it's just one of those things you think this should be happening.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad this happened.
Exactly.
No, this could actually go a long way to helping a lot of shit.
Totally. I 100% agree with that. And I think that just gets us to the end here of the interviews. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with Limit Break Radio and listening to our breakdown of the Game Watch and Famitsu interviews that Yoshi-P gave right after the North American FanFest. Again, for links to those articles, you can head on over to our website, limitbreakradio.com, where we'll attach those with this episode posting. But that doesn't wrap up what we've got here for you today. There was some very important matchups that happened over the weekend. So this is for the final time in Season 2. Let's check in with what happened at the FFFL.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hyper Bowl Sunday here in the FFFL. Yes, it's been a long season, but finally, the last vote is in the books and our winners have been determined. So let's start by looking at the Toilet Bowl. Toilet Bowl 2 featured two longtime rivals as GM Callow Landis' Edelweiss Avengers traveled to the missing member to take on Nika Kyanian's Chickabos. A brutal matchup ensued wherein both GMs, in a display of the kind of gamesmanship one has come to expect from the FFFL, proceeded to no longer care at all and not even promote their teams.
Are you even trying?
While this may sound like a bad thing, it actually may have led to the most accurate reading of how people actually feel about the teams that we've gotten all season. In the end, the Chickabos took the win 59-41 and secure third place in the league, while the Edelweiss Avengers will have fourth. And now over to our main event. Hyper Bowl 2 saw two first-time GMs battle it out as Papa Woody and Titan's Banana Hammock hit the road to the Chaos Shrine to take on Surin Kyanian's Super Senpai
Papa
Megaforce.
Woody wasn't a
What are you
first-time
talking about?
GM.
First time?
He was in the last season.
I wasn't in this.
Yeah, he was definitely there.
No.
Yeah.
Really? Did he win anything?
Wasn't in the Hyper Bowl. I think that's what he's
But
saying.
no, but it said first-time GMs in the Hyper Bowl. That was a fail.
Thanks.
Fail.
Thanks for that. Great.
I was
You're
trying
welcome.
for you.
Oh, where was I? All right. These teams had met once in the regular season already as the Banana Hammocks marched into the Chaos Shrine in Week 11 to hand the Megaforce their only loss of the regular season. Both teams seemed confident going into the week, and it really showed in the first half, with the score staying pretty tight. This year's Hyper Bowl halftime show featured hit new band PS3 and the Dark Stars. However,
you guys suck!
However, 3 songs in, they were told their services would no longer be required.
Wow, they got 3 out? I'm shocked.
Yeah, that's about right. The break in the action was not kind to Titans Banana Hammock, who had a tough time getting going in the second half, and that would really tell the story of it. The FFFL would like to extend its congratulations to Sir and Kyanian and the Super Senpai Megaforce, who take the win 61-39 and are now our Season 2 champions.
That fucking Dark Star guys, I tell you what.
I was gonna say, you guys just didn't play very well after they performed.
Nah, you get...
Much like anyone who watched their guide.
Exactly. You start listening to that shit and you just feel so... not motivated to do anything.
We now enter the offseason with our teams and GMs taking some much-deserved rest before we gear up for Season 3. Season 3 will not see any expansion of teams, though certain teams may drop out, opening up slots in the league. There will be a host of rules changes and additions, however, including the introduction of injuries in Season 3. That will be a concern for everyone to deal with. So keep your eyes peeled. For the FFFL and Limit Break Radio, this is Ascalia Ryumasa saying, see you next season.
Thank you guys for all of your votes and all of your participation over at limitbreakradio.com and at Twitter. That's twitter.com/Limit Break Radio. Thank you for all of the hard work that you've done this season, Ascalia. It's been a successful season. I wouldn't know. I haven't been paying attention to any of it, but it sounds like you did a good job, and this is a fun bit to do every week. So
No, it was really stupid, and I hated it. And
you're just saying that because you lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I still have lots and lots of money from all my sponsorships, but
he did have well over like 10,000 sponsors over the course of the season.
That's a lot of sponsors.
It is.
What's your secret to success there, Juxta?
Getting lots of money.
Yeah, no, I know that, but I mean, like, how did you sell the team that was not doing so well to that many sponsors?
Well, just the allure of Lords of Verminion just really brought in all the sponsors.
Okay. Who knew that would be a big seller?
Yeah. I'm pretty surprised.
I had some ins with Godbert too.
So we're gonna take some time off. The off season should be good chance for everyone to get hyped up for next season. We'll have some injuries and other things added in for the next go around, and we'll be back in a few months.
All right. Well, thanks guys for all of your participation at home. Also for the FFFL, it does happen with fan participation. We have fan run teams, and I'm sure that we're going to be not making space, but there's probably going to be an opportunity for someone to get picked up by the league, right?
I think so. I feel like a few of our players who we had this time who never got involved after their draft, they may be
dropping
from
off
next season.
Fair enough.
If you want to be part of the FFFL, send us an email at hosts@limitbreakradio.com.
Tell us why you should be part of the FFFL.
That's right. All right, and we're getting pretty close to the end of the episode here. We have just a little bit of time. Let's take. We haven't read emails in so long. Let's just read this first email here at the top.
I don't want to.
And
are you sure you want to read this one?
No, not this one.
Why?
No. We're not reading this one. Skip it. Next one.
No, we're definitely reading this one.
No.
Well, is this? Oh,
right.
no. Oh.
Here's the warning I'm going to give you. I performed some quality control on the first one of these that we got. I haven't read this one yet.
Oh, this is a new fanfic.
No, it's not.
Who's in this one?
No.
Ooh.
This is horrifying.
All right, we'll have to set this one aside for another.
Well, okay, but we need a little bit of a teaser. I mean, who does it feature?
No one.
Obviously, the Dragoon is one of them, but who's the other one?
Who's in it?
Who's in it?
It's Callow.
I think it's our resident dick ninja.
Oh God, he sure is. We can give the title of this one, I guess. It's titled "Heavy Thrust." Can I have it?
There you go.
I think we need to have Kahlo on for the show.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Do this one.
So why don't we take another email? Let's go with this one from Anima Exodus of Sergeant Tanis, who says, Aloha, LBR crew, and hi, Nika. I thought I'd share my FMFFL that involves LBR personally.
Uh-oh.
After struggling not to fall asleep to some other FF14 podcasts, I somehow stumbled upon you guys. It's like going back and now I can never go back. It's like going black and now I can never go back. Wow.
Wow. That's a new way of thinking of us.
After a few attempts at trying to sort out the transfer over to Swagantanis, I finally jumped through all of the hoops of switching servers. $18? What the fuck? By the time I read the red warning notice about having too much gil, there was no going back for me, and I naively assumed that if my retainers had it, then it would safely transfer over.
Only a certain amount.
Only to have SE mug me for 5 million gil. Sadly, though, that isn't really the FMFFL that hurts the most. It's the fact that without even trying, I made more than half of that back in just one day of retainer ventures and selling stuff, junking up my inventory. Gil being meaningless is the real FMFFL here.
That was like the story I had when I jumped to Swagantanis.
Yeah?
I mean, I gained 600,000 in a half an hour just selling my shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So love the quality and true entertainment of the show. Keep up the good work. Anima Exodus of Sergeant Tanis. P.S. A burning question. Listening back through the episodes, I've heard several times you guys joking about kawaii. Is that what that is?
I think so.
Okay.
Kawaii?
Is that okay?
I mean, are they thinking like kawaii? Like cute in Japanese?
From the context of your conversations, I wasn't able to figure out why you guys were joking about kawaii. And as I live on the Garden Island, would like to know why you guys mean.
It's got to be kawaii.
They spelled it like a Hawaiian or kawaii.
We only say kawaii, I think, on like the anime episode of FEC that we did, right?
And it's kawaii. I have no idea.
I don't think. Yeah,
I think we laughed about it when Soken had it.
I would ask.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
That. But it seems like it's a regular reference that they're talking about. Like, I don't ever remember using that as a reference point for a joke. Do you guys?
No.
I don't recall that at all.
I would say he's got us mixed up with another show, but it's a fumful, so
I don't know.
I don't know, guys.
Well, anyway, kawaii is a stupid anime term that means cute.
Thanks.
By the way, I just read that fan fiction. I'm going to go throw up now. This is horrible.
So you're not going to be the one to narrate it this time? You did such a good job with the last one.
I think I'll vomit on your microphone if I do.
Can you not?
Not if I read it.
Too bad.
Oh, I don't want to read this.
Too bad. You kind of volunteered yourself for this.
It's like you opened up
this bit.
Pandora's box.
Yeah. And
so
you've got
to be the fan fiction reader now.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to read all of it with conviction.
And the music.
That's right. Oh, the music will make its sweet return. Oh man.
Oh God.
It's gross, isn't it?
Oh, it is just.
It's gross, isn't it?
It's just laden with puns. Oh,
then our audience is going to love it then.
They're going to love it.
But, I might even kiss a dude.
Oh, God.
All right. Well, to save Escalia a little bit, that's all we have time for here today on Limit Break Radio. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. LimitBreakRadio.com is the website. Twitch.tv/LimitBreakRadio is where you're watching us right now. If you're watching us live, you can follow us on social media. That's Facebook.com/LimitBreakRadio, Twitter.com/LimitBreakRadio. You can check out the LBR subreddit that exists. That's our Limit Break Radio. That's a fan-sponsored project. And if you want to support the show, if you want to help make Limit Break Radio the standard bearer for FF14 podcasting that it's become in the last 2 years, then head on over to patreon.com/Limit Break Radio. We are supported with your donations. So I want to thank everyone who supports us over at patreon.com/Limit Break Radio. And something that I wanted to reiterate, because someone had made mention like, oh, I can't believe that you would have argued with someone who gives you money like that regarding the last episode. And I've made this so clear so many times.
You will argue with anyone.
It says this on the patron page itself, that even if you give money to Limit Break Radio, it does not mean you get to exert.
So Escalia has a gagging issue. Dang.
Oh. Yeah, you get to sit with all of those comments. Enjoy that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week.
But we've said from the beginning that when you donate to Limit Break Radio, that's not a buy-in on having influence over our content. That it's not a way for you to ensure that the discussions that you want to hear happen on this show. If you support us at patreon.com/Limit Break Radio, it means that you're going there to support something that you already like. So if you have a problem with the shit that we make, that means that you did not do your due diligence to make sure that you're 100% down to ride for Limit Break Radio. That's what being a part of the LB Army means. That's what being a part of this community means. It means that, you know what? You're not always going to agree with the shit that comes out of my mouth, and that's not a precondition of listening to this show, but that you support something that has that is different, that doesn't just tread the same line that every other show does. And that's something that all of our patrons do for us, that we try to give back. And if we tried to customize our content and try to make it as palatable for as many people as possible, then the people who have been supporting this show for the 10 years that it's been running, or the year that we've had Patreon up, guess what? They wouldn't like this show as much. And we just do what we feel is the best for this show. If you don't like it, you don't have to give. There's the door. You can go. That's fine. We're not going to hold it against you. But if you believe in what we do is important, if you believe that the discussions that we have on the show are important, then consider going over to patreon.com/Limit Break Radio, giving $1 a month, $5 a month. We've got a whole bunch of different rewards at different levels. And remember that Kahlo's postcards from Eorzea, a $20 pledge in November ensures that you're going to get the November exclusive postcard.
The first one's great.
So head on over to patreon.com/Limit Break Radio and sign up for whatever fits your budget today. That's going to be it.
One thing to mention is that we will be around next week. Despite it being Thanksgiving weekend, we will be here, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to be here. Yeah. I have to work on Thanksgiving, so.
Okay. Yeah, but on Thanksgiving, on that Sunday, we will be here. Yes.
I may not be.
Rude. Anyway.
What? It's not even on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Nika.
Yeah, but my mom is visiting from Michigan for the first time since I moved out here, so yeah.
Does this sound judgy?
Anyway, join us next week. Yes, we will be here. We may not have an FEC. I don't know what the exact plan is, but we definitely will be here for Limit Break Radio. You can join us every Sunday at twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio starting at 1 p.m. if you want to be a part of the live show. That's going to do it for Limit Break Radio for today. I want to thank all of my crew, the hard work of Skuro, who is parsing out all of the interview questions, as well as Papa Woody, who's been filling in for Kahlo. And I want to thank my host, my co-host, Juxtaposition, Escalia Rayumasa, Nika Kayanian. I'm Aniro. Keep listening. Limit Break Radio is a production of LimitBreakRadio.com and Bender Media Productions. This episode was produced by Kuki Persona and Aniro Grigori, Escalia Ryumasa, and The Skuro. Final Fantasy XIV and Eorzea are trademarks of Square Enix. Funding for Limit Break Radio is provided by Miri Kennett, Captain Failboat, Zurian Urexin, Azura Giacho, Bianca Forwin, Kalina Ashsaber, Thor Carson, My Waifu, Satori Komeji, Darbykins, Sakura-chan, Dark Flux, Nullpacker, and fellow Limit Break Radio listeners. To support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/limitbreakradio. Opening music in this episode from Daniel Lambie. Listen to Man with the Machine Gun and other great tracks at facebook.com/Daniel Lambie Metal Gamer. Closing music in this episode provided by Husky by the Geek. Listen to this and other great Final Fantasy XIV and video game rock covers and original music at facebook.com/Husky by the Geek. In-game graphics for Limit Break Radio's Twitch streams are provided by Diamond Multimedia. Check out their line of AMD graphics cards and other hardware at diamondmm.com. Limit Break Radio and its hosts are solely responsible for its content.